Chapter 481. The Volcanic Magic Institute near Tokyo. The Magic Institute is located on South Iwo Jima, one of the volcanic islands. Like all wizarding schools, it is protected by anti-apparition spells. Due to historical reasons, these protections are even more stringent here. There was a period when the country was in lockdown, preventing foreigners from entering. Although those days are behind us, the local wizarding community still harbors a significant amount of hostility towards outsiders. This magical society mirrors the Muggle world in many ways. Direct access to South Iwo Jima is impossible due to a nearby airbase, making it difficult for ships to approach. "How do we get there?" Gauss inquired. Musashi, gazing thoughtfully at the sky, replied, "The young wizards of the Magic Institute travel there by riding a giant seagull. We can seize this opportunity to follow them." The Magic Institute's approach to education differs from Hogwarts. They begin recruiting wizards at the age of 7 and start boarding at the age of 11. Until then, the young wizards commute by riding a giant seagull from a place known as Kisaragi Station. This station, shrouded in mystery and seldom visited by people, is often associated with tales of hidden gods by Muggles. In reality, it serves as a gateway for wizards to the Magic Institute. As the trio waited, a mist enveloped them, accompanied by the sound of flapping wings. Soon, a massive figure emerged from the mist. "Gauss, you stay here," John instructed, preempting any protest from Gauss by tossing him a money bag. Catching it, Gauss muttered about the arrangement not being part of their initial agreement, but Musashi cut him off, advising, "You'd better find a place to hide. Aurors sometimes patrol this area, and you're here illegally." Gauss looked around the desolate station, wondering where he could possibly conceal himself. The sound of children's voices emerged from the mist, drawing nearer. John tapped his head with his wand, casting a disillusionment charm to conceal himself. Musashi opted for an illusion charm. They ventured into the mist just as the children bid farewell to the giant seagull. As the seagull prepared to take off, Musashi leaped aboard swiftly. The fog, it turned out, was the result of the giant seagull's breath, which made these creatures perfect for transportation. Their exhaled breath created a white mist, aiding in concealing their movements. John found himself seated on the back of a giant seagull, which, while not as large as a dragon, was still of considerable size. Despite there being 2 passengers, the seagull seemed unfazed. Musashi, with a hint of nostalgia, remarked, "I used to ride a giant seagull to school." "It's a pity it doesn't seem as comfortable as a train," John commented dryly. Musashi remained silent, reflecting on the unique advantages of both the Hogwarts Express and the giant seagulls of the Magic Institute. Flying over the ocean, they passed an Air Force training base, with planes and patrolling Muggles below. Beyond this point lay South Iwo Jima, home to the Magic Institute. Situated atop the highest point of South Iwo Jima, the Institute resembled a palace built on a volcano. Its white structure, adorned with a gorgeous and intricate pagoda design, stood out majestically. The giant seagull landed on a platform alongside other seagulls, all shrouded in fog. Stealthily, the two disembarked. Within the Institute, they observed students of varying grades, distinguishable by their uniforms. Pink for the lower grades, with higher grades marked by color changes, and a select few adorned in gold. The palace, constructed from mutton-fat jade, showcased an oriental aesthetic distinct from Western styles. As darkness fell and the students dispersed, John made his move, stepping forward into the Institute. Musashi lingered behind, his gaze still fixed on the majestic scene before them, lost in thought. At his alma mater, Musashi was lost in thought until John's reminder brought him back to reality. With a mix of emotions arling within him, Musashi entered the magic house alongside John. "I wish to inquire, Your Excellency Silverhand," Musashi began, walking beside John, "what brings you to the Magic Institute?" John responded with a casual tone. The pursuit of magical knowledge often requires learning from others. Eastern countries have a significant advantage over the West in terms of their magical heritage. As a result, their magic is not only more potent, but also encompasses a wider array of ancient spells. As they halted in front of the Magic Institute's gate, John gazed upward. The name of the magic house was etched into it like an ancient plaque. After a moment's contemplation, he stepped through the entrance. Upon entering, the illusion spell concealing John's true appearance was dispelled by the Institute's protective magic, revealing his presence to the faculty. John had anticipated this and wore a mask for anonymity. The faculty, referred to as mentors here, quickly noticed the newcomers. A female mentor with long, straight black hair caught sight of Musashi, and her expression shifted to one of disbelief mixed with a hint of emotion. "Musashi?" she uttered, astonished to see him return to the magical realm. Musashi, facing the mentor, displayed a complex mix of emotions but managed a relieved smile. "You've become a mentor, Shizuka," he said. Before Shizuka could respond, an elderly man with a scarred bald head and a long white beard tied with a purple ribbon approached. "Akino Musashi?" he inquired, coughing slightly. Musashi, recognizing the man, showed a flicker of fear in his eyes and respectfully greeted him, "Principal." The principal, bearing an ancient demeanor reminiscent of Dumbledore, though appearing far more frail, commanded attention. John observed the old man closely, particularly the scar on his forehead. As 6 mentors gathered around, John seized the moment to explain his presence. "I'm here for a magical exchange," he stated, offering a polite smile. "Please excuse my unsanctioned arrival." One of the mentors, with a stern expression, questioned John in heavily accented English. "Who are you?" "You may call me Silver Hand," John replied calmly. "I'm prepared to compensate for my visit." Principal Zhang intervened, signaling the mentor to halt. He regarded John with a thoughtful gaze. "Johnny Silverhand, your reputation precedes you," he acknowledged. John, slightly amused, replied, "I was under the impression that your country's magical community had been isolated for years and would be unaware of my name." "Not at all," Principal Zhang responded with a smile. "Your exploits are well known across Europe. Despite our isolation, news of your deeds has reached us. Our empire holds the powerful in high esteem, and it seems your philosophy aligns with ours," the principal continued, scrutinizing John. "Your visit to the Magic Institute suggests more than mere curiosity. In the realm of magic, the distinction between day and night often blurs," John remarked with a light smile. "My intentions remain unchanged. I'm willing to offer a suitable reward in exchange for access to your literary resources." Principal Zhang weighed John's words carefully, considering the implications of his request. With the Institute currently in session and only 6 mentors present, the prospect of confronting someone of Johnny Silverhand's stature, a figure whose influence rivaled that of Grindelwald and Voldemort, was daunting. Moreover, the potential benefits of fostering a relationship with such a powerful individual were not lost on him. After a moment of contemplation, Principal Zhang replied warmly, "It is always a pleasure to welcome distinguished guests from afar. As Your Excellency Silver Hand has journeyed from the West, it is only fitting that the Magic Institute extends its hospitality." With a gesture signaling enough courtesy, the headmaster motioned for the mentors to leave. Casting a stern glance at Musashi, he invited John to enter. John stepped into the Magic Institute, with the headmaster personal Lai leading the way. As they entered the atrium, Principal Zhang suddenly declared, "Musashi, you are a sinner, unworthy of entering this sacred place." Upon hearing these words, Musashi halted, responding in a subdued tone, "I understand, Principal Zhang." The principal nodded in acknowledgement, and John, maintaining a neutral expression, followed behind. Musashi paused, looking around in bewilderment. The institute was vast, and the path they were on was lengthy. As they walked, John initiated a casual conversation. "It seems the relationship between wizards in your country and the Muggle world differs from that in the West," he remarked. "In ancient times, you were known as onmyojis, serving the king," John added offhandedly. "Yes," Principal Zhang replied with pride, stroking his beard. "Our country's royal family boasts a long and divine lineage, unique and noble beyond compare." John observed the old man's absolute reverence for the Muggle monarch. Historically, the wizards of this country maintained a superior subordinate relationship with their monarch, a dynamic that still exists, albeit faintly, today. Their Ministry of Magic retains some ties with the so-called royal family, though these connections have begun to fade in modern times. The influence of the royal family has also diminished, and many wizards no longer view the royal family with the same deference as before. This shift is partly due to the advent of modern weaponry, which has lessened the onmyoji's importance. Yet the headmaster appeared to cling to the old ways, still honoring the traditional superior-subordinate relationship. Chapter 482, Musashi's Past. I am truly honored to have you here, Principal Zhang said as he led John into a courtyard adorned with a magnificent cherry blossom tree. Under the moonlight, the pink and white petals appeared almost ethereal, while the thick trunk and delicate catkins added to the scene's primitive beauty. This sight, whether viewed from the east or the west, evoked a profound sense of awe. But it's not just your strength that intrigues me, Your Excellency's silver hand, the principal continued, tapping his wand against a door in the courtyard. It's also your remarkable wisdom. As the doors swung open, they revealed a room lined with numerous bookshelves. This attic, doubling as a library, housed not only documents, but also many ancient scrolls. I've heard that most of Johnny Silverhand's inventions were your creations, Your Excellency, the principal remarked, inviting John inside. John picked up a scroll and unfurled it, revealing writings by ancient onmyojis, or wizards. It seems you're quite knowledgeable, Principal, John observed, noting that the scroll detailed an ancient sealing spell. We, like you, Your Excellency, have a penchant for studying, Principal Zhang replied with a smile, stroking his beard. A friend of mine often speaks highly of your intelligence, which has made me quite eager to meet you. Then your friend must be a formidable wizard, John commented, noticing a heavily sealed door in the attic. What's behind that door? He inquired, intrigued by the runes and magical seals adorning it. It's nothing, Principal Zhang replied with a dismissive smile, clearly not ready to divulge its secrets. John nodded, understanding the principal's reluctance, and then inquired if he could explore further. I will close the library to ensure you're not disturbed by my students, Principal Zhang offered, to which John expressed his gratitude. Once the principal had exited and closed the door behind him, John ascended to the second floor, where even more ancient texts awaited him. From this vantage point, he could admire the cherry tree in all its splendor. Immersing himself in the library's treasures, John selected several ancient books to study, quickly absorbing their knowledge. He learned that the Magic Institute's predecessor was known as Yinyangliao, originally founded by Onmyoji. Consequently, their magical practices differed from those in the West. For instance, the Institute utilized talismans, paper imbued with magical properties, a concept distinct from Western magic. These talismans, often used for sealing, highlighted the differences between Eastern and Western wizardry. In local legends, wizards employed these seals to combat spectral entities that lingered between life and death. Why does this sound akin to ghost lore? John mused, delving deeper into the scrolls. His mind, like a parched sponge, eagerly soaked up the new knowledge. By the second night, John's focus intensified. This aligns closely with my theories, he realized, reading about how magic is powered by spiritual energy and can be activated through emotional stimulation. This concept mirrored his own experiments with Malfoy, where he explored the power of anger to enhance magical abilities. Despite the scrolls being written in the local language, John's aptitude for languages made learning it relatively straightforward. As he continued his research, he stumbled upon a peculiar book, not a scroll, which documented a series of experiments. These experiments, purportedly aimed at enhancing magical talent, involved various theories and practices. It's all theoretical, after all, John thought, noting the book's mention of using electricity in the experiments. John tossed the book aside, finding its contents distasteful. The idea of using shocks to stimulate the human brain, thereby enhancing magical power, seemed absurd to him. He couldn't help but think that such methods would likely result in nothing more than the creation of unstable wizards. Azkaban will be greeting you soon, he muttered under his breath. On the third day of his research, John stumbled upon records about bond magic, a concept reminiscent of the protective power Harry Potter derived from his mother's love. This ancient magic, fueled by the bonds of friendship, could potentially amplify one's abilities. Unlike the dramatic power-ups seen in anime, where characters unleash formidable attacks bolstered by declarations of the strength of their bonds, John sought to understand the underlying principles of these emotional connections without the need for blood magic. For 4 days, John had secluded himself in the attic, oblivious to the world outside. Unbeknownst to him, Musashi had been imprisoned. Teacher Shizuka, standing outside Musashi's cell, lamented his return. Musashi, looking gaunt and weary, expressed his inability to escape his fate, haunted by the horrors he had witnessed and the experiments conducted on unsuspecting victims. Musashi's outburst revealed his frustration and anger, not just at his own situation, but at the systemic issues that allowed such atrocities to continue. Shizuka, in her quiet determination, insisted on protecting those who were still at risk, despite Musashi's skepticism about her ability to make a difference, given the powerful figures involved. As the conversation unfolded, it became clear that Musashi had been sending money to help Shizuka and the children, a desperate attempt to atone for his perceived failures. Shizuka, however, believed that true salvation required a complete break from the past, a notion that Musashi found difficult to accept. Half a month later, John, driven by his relentless pursuit of knowledge, had managed to gain a basic understanding of bond magic. With only 2 hours of sleep each night, he was determined to master this ancient magic and was finally ready to leave the library. This narrative, rich in emotional depth and moral complexity, explores themes of guilt, redemption, and the power of human connections. Through the interactions between Musashi, Shizuka, and John, it delves into the consequences of unethical magical experiments and the potential for personal growth and societal change. Principal Zhang was already waiting outside the door when it opened. John, puzzled, asked, "Don't you have classes to attend?" It seemed the old man had momentarily forgotten his role as the principal, even taking the time to greet him. Principal Zhang chuckled and replied, "Your Excellency Silver Hand might not be aware, but today is a holiday for the students. They've all left to return home." "Is that so?" John responded indifferently, preparing to leave. "Wait a moment," Principal Zhang interjected, a mysterious glint appearing in his eyes. With a smile, he added, "Wouldn't Your Excellency Silver Hand be curious about what lies beyond that door? To be frank, it's a research project the school has been involved in for the past few years." "A research project?" John raised an eyebrow. "Indeed," Principal Zhang continued. "It's a collaborative effort between the Institute of Magic and the Ministry of Magic. I'd like to invite you inside. Your insights would be invaluable to us." Principal Zhang, highly regarding John's status as the second king, mentioned, "My friend believes you're the only one capable of assisting us in this matter." "That's intriguing," John chuckled. "Your friend holds me in high regard, it seems." "And that's precisely why I hold you in such esteem," Principal Zhang said, gesturing towards the door. With a push from Principal Zhang, the sealed door slowly opened, emitting a long, eerie creak. Beyond it lay a staircase descending into darkness, the principal's smile appearing particularly sinister in the dim light. John squinted, driven by curiosity to see what secrets lay hidden within. He stepped inside. Chapter 483, The Study of Magic. John found himself navigating through a deep, dark corridor, a place that left no impression on him. Ahead, the imposing figure of the principal loomed, a man who, unlike John, was neither a witcher nor blessed by night devils. Yet, curiously, he navigated the darkness without the need for any light, seemingly oblivious to John's puzzled gaze. "Your Excellency Silver Hand, what do you believe is the essence of magic?" the principal inquired, breaking the silence. "Magic?" John responded, his voice steady. "It's a blend of energy and emotion." At this, Principal Chong halted in his tracks, his face registering surprise. "Exactly, emotion," he exclaimed, his excitement palpable. He likened his revelation to a parched land greeting rain, a great horse finding its master, and kindred spirits discovering each other amidst majestic landscapes. As wizards, our emotional depth grants us a unique ability to wield magic through sheer will, he elaborated, his tone reminiscent of a scholar lost in his musings. He continued, "The emotional volatility of young wizards often hampers their control over magic. Their emotions, though erratic, can yield unexpectedly potent magical outcomes." He cited the example of Harry Potter, who before his formal education in magic performed a complex vanishing spell on a pane of glass, a feat he might struggle to replicate today with the same proficiency. Principal Chong's musings were not without basis. "You're familiar with Morin, aren't you? Its origins trace back to the untamed magic of young wizards," he claimed, suggesting that a wizard's power diminishes with age. In their youth, wizards are at their peak. John's skepticism grew with each word. The principal's theory seemed flawed, likening a wizard's power to a glass of water, overflowing in youth, only to deplete over time. In contrast, John believed that an adult wizard, through years of study and experience, learns to channel his power more effectively, akin to controlling the flow of water through a faucet. This discipline, he argued, does not weaken a wizard, but rather enhances his ability to unleash greater power when necessary. Dismissing the principal's notion as fanciful, John followed him around a corner where a faint glow hinted at the space beyond. They entered a vast, hollow chamber, its ceiling intertwined with a dense network of roots, each connected to a transparent glass container. Some muggles possess the latent potential to become wizards, Principal Chong posited, a smile playing on his lips. Given their similar biological makeup, it's conceivable that children born to muggle parents could inherit magical abilities. Why not, then, start with muggles, he suggested, proposing an emotionally charged method to unlock their latent wizardry. Below them, personnel in protective suits busied themselves around a glass tank, from which a child, covered in electrodes and visibly distressed, was extracted. Beneath the chamber, a pit filled with a viscous liquid concealed countless corpses, some marked with symbols familiar to John. Your Excellency Silver Hand, I extend to you an invitation to join this experiment, Principal Chong said, his enthusiasm undimmed. With this technique, we could raise an army, transforming muggles into wizards without concern for wizard casualties, as long as we have enough muggles to convert. John looked on as the child, now free from the tank, screamed in terror. The personnel in protective suits activated the machinery, setting into motion a process that blurred the lines between ethical magic and dark ambition. The switch was flipped with indifference, and electricity coursed through the child's body, eliciting a scream of agony. Several individuals were present, meticulously recording data. As black smoke began to rise from the child, one of the observers quickly turned off the electricity. However, it was too late. The child had lost control of his bodily functions, and life had fled from his body. One of the recorders spoke without emotion. Send him to the Department of Night Operations to see if he can join the 100 Ghosts. A person stepped forward, picked up the child's body, and departed for another department. The child was a muggle. These individuals were conducting experiments to forcibly awaken magical talent through extreme pain, hoping to transform him into a wizard, as Principal Zhang had suggested. The area was littered with corpses surrounded by a viscous liquid, a grim testament to how many muggles had been sacrificed for these experiments. This liquid was a potion designed to sustain life at the cost of another's. It was an act of undeniable evil. Beneath the most beautiful cherry tree, where countless corpses were piled, the lush flowers and leaves of the trees were stained with blood, and bones were crushed until they turned white. I've always believed that schools should be places of teaching and enlightenment, John said, taking a deep breath to maintain his composure. Even Durmstrang, known for its instruction in dark arts, has never resorted to abducting muggles for experiments. Your Excellency Silver Hand, muggles are of the least value, Principal Zhang replied with a smile. Their ability to reproduce is astonishing, akin to a sow that continuously gives birth. Their death rate is significantly slower than their birth rate. He continued, his eyes gleaming with madness. I discovered this in another country. I accompanied the army there and found my perfect experimental paradise. We faced failures, but these are merely minor setbacks, Principal Zhang said, his voice tinged with obsession. John sneered, proudly standing here as a war criminal engaged in human experimentation. Principal Zhang, looking at John with frantic eyes, pleaded, Your Excellency Silver Hand, please join us. I have long wished to collaborate with you, not just for your influence, but for your muggle-born yet unparalleled power. He began to scratch the scar on his head frantically, like a deranged animal, until it bled, yet he did not cease. You are unique. No muggle-born wizard has ever matched your talent. You would be the ultimate subject for our research. His eyes, filled with greed, fixed on John. John responded coolly, I understand now. It explains your generosity in allowing me access to the library for half a month. What were you preparing for? From their first meeting, Principal Zhang had shown extreme enthusiasm. He seemed unconcerned about an outsider accessing the school's ancient texts and even closed the library to accommodate him. It was all premeditated, an invitation laced with ulterior motives. "I'm curious, how did you know I'm Muggle-born? Perhaps you could tell me the name of your informant?" John inquired. His curiosity piqued about how Principal Zhang had uncovered his identity. He had publicly identified as Johnny Silverhand, but had never disclosed his lineage. Only someone aware of his true identity could know he was Muggle-born. Principal Zhang's smile turned sinister. "Of course, my friend. Your Excellency Silverhand is well known. His name is—" He paused dramatically. "Voldemort." John's realization dawned. Indeed, only Voldemort could have known. Principal Zhang continued, 30 years ago, a wizard of exceptional talent traveled here from across the ocean. Later, I heard he died abroad, but he appeared before me last year. That's when I learned of another extraordinarily talented wizard named John Wick." With a proud smile, Principal Zhang added, "Your body is not as fragile as those Muggles. Your blood must possess unique properties." His gaze swept over John greedily. Beneath the mask of the legendary Second King lies a youth not yet 17. You have so much potential. Allow me to unlock it. For you, Your Excellency Silverhand. A group of wizards had gathered around. Among them John noticed several figures who appeared to be aurors. Given his disheveled appearance, the thought of him being a teacher seemed absurd. John instinctively drew his wand, ready for any confrontation. Principal Zahn, Jie, however, remained unfazed and addressed John with a confident smile. "Your Excellency Silverhand, you must have noticed something unusual about this place," he said. John's gaze followed Principal Zhang's hint and observed the walls around them. They were covered in densely packed runes. With the knowledge he had acquired over the past half a month, John recognized their purpose, a sealing spell. These runes formed a magical field that suppressed the abilities of any wizard within its range. Even the formidable Second King, stripped of his magic, would be no more than a lamb to the slaughter here, Principal Zhang remarked. A tall man approached from behind Principal Zhang and respectfully handed him a knife. Taking the knife, Principal Zhang drew the blade, which gleamed menacingly in the dim light. "I have always found a certain allure in the clash of swords, more so than in magic," he mused, running a finger along the blade's edge. "This sword, named Guangdao Heping, was a gift from the Emperor during my time in the military." His gaze fixed on John's silver mask. Principal Zhang grinned, revealing a set of broken teeth. "Worry not, Your Excellency Silverhand. I shall sculpt you into perfection. In pursuit of that perfection, the loss of a few limbs is a trifling matter." Principal Zhang's ominous words hung in the air as he added, "Don't even entertain the thought of escape. That door will not open for anyone but me." John caught sight of dozens of people closing in on him, forming a tight circle. "Magic is forbidden here?" he inquired, a hint of disbelief in his voice. The prospect of facing over 100 people was daunting, and John was under no illusion about his chances against 30 wizards in a magical duel. However, the idea of a physical confrontation seemed almost too good to be true. He didn't sheath his wand, but instead shifted his grip, holding it upside down. A wicked smile played on his lips as he surveyed the crowd. "Before we begin, does anyone wish to reconsider their involvement?" John's tone was laced with a challenge, his readiness for the impending conflict unmistakable. Chapter 484, The Exploding Volcano Dungeon. For the past half-month, Musashi had been confined within the dreary walls of the Exploding Volcano Dungeon. His appearance had deteriorated significantly. His face was pale, his hair greasy, and his beard unkempt, giving him a decidedly decadent look. However, appearances can be deceiving, as Musashi had been anything but idle during his captivity. After numerous attempts at casting spells without a wand, he finally succeeded on his 70th try. The door's lock blasted open with a resounding bang. A smile of triumph spread across Musashi's face. Had his wandless spell casting finally succeeded? "Musashi-kun, I've come to rescue you," Shizuka announced as she pushed open the door. She had been waiting for the perfect moment to act. With the Magic Institute at its quietest and the headmaster preoccupied with leading Johnny Silverhands elsewhere, the opportunity for Musashi's escape couldn't have been better. "Shizuka," Musashi greeted her, his voice tinged with urgency. "I need a wand." His own wand had been confiscated upon his capture. Anticipating this need, Shizuka handed him a cherry-wood wand, took his hand, and prepared to lead him out. However, their escape was abruptly halted. "Expelliarmus!" A red light struck, knocking Shizuka's wand from her grasp. Musashi, with a look of regret, said, "I'm sorry, Shizuka. I can't leave. I've decided to destroy this place completely." Shizuka's face paled at his declaration. "You're insane. You can't possibly take on that challenge alone, and anyone you involve won't make it out alive." "No, Shizuka. You underestimate Lord Silverhand," Musashi replied gravely. "His power is far beyond what you can imagine. Leave now, before I bring this place down." Determined to see his plan through, Musashi's resolve was unshakable. Shizuka, still hoping to dissuade him, was interrupted by a sudden red light emanating from the dungeon. Musashi instinctively positioned himself in front of Shizuka to protect her. It was too late to cast the iron armor curse. The red light struck him, causing his body to convulse and his face to pale from the pain of the Cruciatus curse. "How dare you assist Musashi, Shizuka?" A figure emerged slowly from the shadows of the dungeon. With a face that exuded a venomous femininity, Crow, one of the few mentors present during Musashi's capture, stepped forward. Shizuka's heart sank at the sight of him. She attempted to retrieve her wand to defend herself, but a silver light from Crow's wand created a pothole at her feet, thwarting her efforts. Crow, reveling in the anticipation of their demise, approached with a malicious grin. "I've despised you for a long time, Shizuka. You opposed me at every turn during our school days," Crow sneered. "Now, with Musashi in my grasp, I'll ensure his suffering is beyond imagination." As he finished speaking, the agony of the Cruciatus curse intensified, racking Musashi's body with unbearable pain. Yet, Crow showed no signs of mercy. "Crow, stop! He'll die if you continue," Shizuka pleaded. "Silence!" Crow flicked his wand, sending Shizuka flying against the wall where she was bound tightly by magical ropes. Turning his attention back to Musashi, Crow taunted, "Principal Zhang will never forgive you. I will crush your pride and self-esteem beneath my feet." He then stepped on Musashi's fingers, eliciting a scream of pain that echoed through the dungeon. Crow's eyes gleamed with cruelty, devoid of any sympathy. Just as Crow was about to deliver the final blow, a green light illuminated the dungeon. Musashi braced himself for the end, but when he opened his eyes, he saw Crow's lifeless body collapsed on the ground. "Tsk, tsk. I just saved your life," a voice remarked. Musashi looked up to see Gauss, his expression impassive. "Consider our debt even now." "Gauss?" Musashi struggled to his feet, disbelief and relief mingling in his gaze. Gauss inquired, "How did you get here?" "In a rather foolish manner, using a broomstick," Musashi replied as Gauss stepped forward to help him up, expressing his frustration. "You were too hasty in summoning me here." Musashi, taken aback, clarified, "I didn't summon you." "It wasn't you, it was the boss," Gauss corrected with a hint of greed in his voice. "After completing this task, it'll be worth one of Selwyn's favors." Musashi was puzzled. Had Johnny Silver orchestrated Gauss's arrival? But how? Despite his doubts, Musashi knew they had more pressing issues at hand. "His Excellency, Silverhand, has been taken to a room in the library. It could be dangerous." "What? Who dares to harm my boss?" Gauss erupted in anger. "He's my ticket to wealth and security. No one should dare lay a finger on him." Fueled by rage, Gauss stormed off. Musashi quickly grabbed his wand, freed Shizuka, and followed suit. Shizuka, witnessing the scene, felt a surge of panic that quickly turned to dread. She knew the situation was beyond repair. Picking up her wand, she trailed behind Musashi. Thankfully, due to Principal Zhang's policy of sending students home for vacation to facilitate research, the Magic Institute was unusually quiet, inhabited only by Shizuka, Crow, and 4 mentors resting in their offices. Upon reaching the library, Gauss attempted to forcefully open the door, which was sealed with powerful spells. "It's useless. The seal is too strong," Shizuka interjected, approaching the door. She sliced her palm with a sharp stone, allowing her blood to flow onto the talisman on the door. As her blood seeped into the seal, the door gradually loosened. Musashi watched Shizuka with a complex expression. "Principal Chong never imagined his own granddaughter would defy him when he created this magic," he remarked. Principal Chong, born Minamoto Shige, was Shizuka's great-grandfather, a man so ruthless he experimented on his own great-granddaughter. Shizuka, pale and disheartened, stated, "I am merely Yuan Shizuka." She wanted no association with her cruel ancestor. Gauss pushed the door open, revealing a dark, winding staircase. As they lit their wands, the light vanished after just 3 steps, as if the darkness devoured all life, sending chills down their spines. "We need to be brave. We need to be brave!" Gauss muttered to himself, ready to charge into the darkness. If he could rescue his boss, he believed it would take a substantial amount of galleons to mend his broken heart. Musashi, determined to destroy the magical lair, rushed in without a second thought. As they neared the end, a gust of wind carrying a thick, almost suffocating scent of blood halted them. It was as if countless lives had been lost within, and the smell of blood signaled they were up against a formidable foe. Shizuka, trembling, revealed, "Principal Zhang has set up an enchantment inside that blocks all magic. All wizards are rendered powerless, but Principal Zhang, a veteran of war and a swordsman who has slain hundreds, is unaffected," she explained, hinting at the peril of facing a seasoned warrior without magical abilities. Shizuka, grasping Musashi's hand, pleaded, "Please, let's escape." Musashi, understanding the gravity of fleeing, knew he would live in regret if they did not act. Firmly, he released Shizuka's hand, declaring, "I won't back down." Seeing his resolve, Gauss brushed Shizuka's hand aside, took Musashi's hand in his, and said with unexpected affection, "Brothers, let's face this together. We'll split the rewards evenly." Even Gauss, who typically prioritized wealth over risking his life, was prepared to share the potential rewards after sensing the danger that lay ahead. Gauss hesitated for a moment before deciding not to withdraw his hand. Instead, he and Musashi prepared themselves for what was ahead. From the sides of his shoes, Gauss produced 2 small knives, one for himself and another for Musashi. It might seem odd for wizards to carry knives, but as professionals, they knew the importance of being prepared for any situation. As they cautiously rounded the corner, the scent of blood grew stronger, making them grimace, though they remained silent. In the dim light, Gauss's hand brushed against something unexpectedly soft. Pausing, he felt it again, realizing it was fabric soaked in a wet substance. When he finally turned to look, a horrifying sight met his eyes, a face frozen in terror, belonging to a body with a slit throat. This was just the beginning. As they continued, the scene before them grew increasingly gruesome. The corridor was littered with disorganized corpses, some with their throats cut, others with their eyes gouged out, a macabre attempt to sow confusion. In a particularly ghastly display, 3 bodies were impaled together with a knife. In total, there were dozens of victims. Among the dead, Musashi recognized a notorious figure known as the 100-People Killer, a high-ranking officer, now dead, strangled by his own beard and hanging over the railing. Nearby, the famed sword of Guangdao Heping lay broken in 2, discarded carelessly. Their attention was then drawn to John, who was inspecting a glass box. Inside, children soaked in a thick liquid were visible. Some were from their own country, while others were foreign, likely trafficked. It appeared the headmaster had been conducting experiments to see if individuals from different backgrounds could be transformed from muggles into wizards. Upon noticing Gauss and the others, John casually remarked, "Take these alive out, 20 galleons each." Gauss, pushing aside his shock, eagerly began to open the glass boxes, freeing the children one by one. Shizuka, like Musashi, was frozen in shock upon entering. John, meanwhile, was focused on a platform below. "Musashi, if I'm not mistaken, there's a volcano beneath us, correct?" he asked quietly, a hint of determination in his voice. "I don't take kindly to being at a disadvantage." "Silverhand, Your Excellency," Musashi managed, his voice tense. John's right hand, encased in silver, summoned the sword of silver Wick into the air. At that moment, talismans in the room ignited, setting the stage for what was to come. It was a bold move to set up such an array in front of a 7th-level alchemist like John, who clearly thought little of their bravery. As Gauss was about to lead the rescued children out, John raised his sword. Magical power surged, transforming into a menacing black mist that spiraled towards the ground. "I am a fire dragon," he declared, thrusting the sword downward. The flame at the sword's tip morphed into a fire dragon, burrowing into the earth. Musashi, realizing John's intent, panicked, Grabbing Shizuka's hand, he yelled, "He's going to blow up the volcano! Run!" Deep underground, the fire dragon pierced through the rock formations that had taken years to form. The once dormant volcano stirred to life at the dragon's touch, threatening a catastrophic eruption. Chapter 485, The Return of Grindelwald. In a country known for its islands and volcanoes, one such volcano, dormant for nearly a millennium at the foot of the Magic Institute, roared back to life. The moment the fire element touched it, the volcano erupted with a ferocity that could not be underestimated, not even by the famous Mount Fuji. Outside, Gauss counted the children gathered there. Their appearances were disheveled, their eyes devoid of life, resembling walking dead more than children. Principal Chong's experiments were far from simple electric shocks. He subjected these children, some of whom were wizards, to emotional traumas far beyond what ordinary people could endure, aiming to forcibly enhance their magical powers. Those who survived showed modest improvements, but those who didn't were callously discarded by him. His research had driven Principal Chong to madness. Musashi and Shizuka emerged, and upon seeing the spiritless eyes of the children, Shizuka broke down in tears. "We need to get out of here quickly," Gauss urged, though the means of escape troubled him. Musashi, recovering from his initial shock, suggested, "Let's go to the giant seagulls and leave by air." Gauss was skeptical about the children's compliance, but Musashi assured him, "They'll listen to the instructor." Shizuka, wiping her tears, nodded and led the way. As they made their way to the platform outside the Magic Institute's palace, the ground trembled with a massive rumble, shaking the entire island and causing waves to crash violently against the shore. The nearby Air Force Base sounded its alarms, and the remaining instructors were alerted. One of the instructors, a middle-aged woman who was unaware of Principal Chong's experiments, confronted Shizuka as she led the children away. "Teacher Shizuka, what are you doing?" she demanded. Recognizing the instructor as Teacher Lan, Shizuka replied, "The volcano is erupting. We need to leave now." Skeptical at first, Teacher Lan's doubts vanished as the ground cracked open before them, spewing hot air and crimson magma. Without further questions, Teacher Lan conjured a freezing spell to create a path, urging, "Hurry, take the children this way." The situation grew dire as the temperature soared, melting the soles of their shoes and prompting other instructors to flee. Amidst the chaos, no one paid attention to Gauss and Musashi. The Magic Institute's walls crumbled like dominoes, and the once majestic buildings collapsed under the force of the eruption. The air filled with the cries of frightened seagulls as the instructors and Gauss hurried to load the children onto the backs of giant seagulls, departing in batches of 5. As the 5th giant seagull prepared to take off, Shizuka called out to Musashi, urging him to hurry. Musashi, gazing at the ruins of his former school, felt a complex mix of emotions. The institution where he had learned, achieved glory, and faced loss was now engulfed in red magma, its legacy tarnished by the principal's madness. Gauss, overcome with grief, lamented not only the loss of the school, but also the financial debt Musashi owed him. Boss, how can I live without you?" "You still owe me a lot of money," he cried, more distraught over his lost galleons than the destruction around him. Gauss felt a pang of discomfort akin to the grief of losing his parents. He was on the cusp of wealth, only to have it snatched away at the last moment. Musashi, with a swift pull, saved Gauss from the clutches of disaster just as the giant seagull they were on struggled to escape. The magic house was devoured entirely by the magma, and the island was shrouded in dark clouds and scorching air, making it nearly impossible for the giant seagull to maintain its flight. The nearby Air Force Base had already commenced evacuation procedures, having predicted the volcanic eruption. Moments after Gauss and Musashi's narrow escape, the island was rocked by a tremendous explosion. Crimson magma shot into the sky, and volcanic ash blanketed the surrounding area in a catastrophe see display. A thick layer of gray ash fell like heavy snow, prompting a national emergency. The seismic activity triggered by the eruption caused widespread panic, with fears that another, potentially more devastating eruption could obliterate the country. "This eruption was more intense than I anticipated," John mused, observing from a distance. Dragons, unlike humans, could survive such cataclysmic events. His nearly black scales allowed him to swim through the magma and escape unnoticed into the night sky. Once he was safely out of the country, John transformed back into his human form in a secluded mountain forest. He appeared indifferent, scanning a newspaper he had acquired from an unfortunate owl. The disappearance of a magic school is headline news, even in this isolated place, he noted. It had been a week since John had triggered the volcano, and the incident had garnered worldwide attention, stirring both the magical and non-magical communities. For John, the chaos served as the perfect cover for his disappearance. Wandering through the forest, John sustained himself on fruit and contemplated a scroll he had retrieved from his bag. The Night Parade of 100 Demons, he pondered, comparing the scroll's contents to his knowledge of infernal corpses. The latter involved infusing magic into a corpse to give the illusion of life, whereas the Night Parade involved imprinting souls onto objects, granting them the ability to command ghosts. Despite unsettling nature of ghosts, they posed little threat on their own. However, the Night Parade endowed these spirits with tangible power. Could this be a form of soul magic? John speculated, considering the implications. The scroll suggested that Principal Zhang aimed to create an army of spectral beings, enhancing their capabilities through transformation and control. Such practices were undoubtedly dark and forbidden. John's thoughts then drifted to the elusive misty illusion and the valuable soul of the god of death. Access to the misty illusion had always required a soul's guidance, and John had only encountered the Grim Reaper on 2 occasions. Determined not to squander these rare opportunities, John had meticulously extracted and dissected the soul of the nefarious entity, ensuring it would never find peace in the underworld. As John continued his journey through the mountains, his mind was a whirlwind of plans and possibilities, each step taking him further into the unknown. Unfazed by the possibility of being observed, John continued his walk until he stumbled upon a church. The relationship between wizards and the church has always been a complex and intriguing one. As he approached the church, John underwent a transformation. His hair shifted from black to blonde, and his features subtly altered to present a more mature appearance. Upon entering the church, John had half expected to encounter a nun or a priest. While there were no nuns in sight, he did indeed come across a priest. However, this was no ordinary priest. The man before him exuded a natural charm, clad in priestly attire but with eyes of mismatched colors that hinted at a mischievous and sinister nature. It was Grindelwald, the infamous Dark Lord. Their eyes met, marking a significant encounter between the first-generation Dark Lord and the one who could be considered his successor. In response to this unexpected meeting, John raised his hand, summoning the Sword of Silver Wick into existence. The blade sliced through the air, its golden flames crackling menacingly. With a cold expression, John drew his wand with his left hand and addressed Grindelwald. Is this merely a twist of fate, or is it the proverbial narrow road of enemies? The tension between them was palpable, setting the stage for a confrontation that seemed inevitable given their storied pasts and the complexities of their identities. Chapter 486, A Strange Encounter. John had meticulously altered his appearance, yet he remained on high alert, ready for battle. He was facing a man who not only possessed the Elder Wand, but had also once challenged Dumbledore, the greatest wizard of their time. While John could confront Voldemort with a sense of superiority, facing Grindelwald was a different matter entirely. It seemed that Grindelwald had chosen this church as his temporary base. "Long time no see, John," Grindelwald greeted, his tone casual as if the gravity of their meeting weighed lightly on his shoulders. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his demeanor relaxed, yet undeniably commanding. "I've always believed that fate would bring us together again." John observed Grindelwald's nonchalant approach, noting the deceptive simplicity of his priest's attire. If any locals were around, John suspected they might have fallen under Grindelwald's spell. "You're as cautious as ever. This place is tranquil enough," Grindelwald remarked, clearly adept at reading people. He might have made an excellent psychology professor if he were a muggle. "We might not have to be enemies, John," Grindelwald continued, his boots echoing on the wooden floor with each step, his voice carrying a hypnotic quality. "Our ideals are not so different. Why let others interfere when we could collaborate and settle our differences later?" John was wary of Grindelwald's persuasive skills, aware of how many had been swayed by his rhetoric. "Do you think that's possible?" John asked skeptically. "You seem to forget that if it weren't for you, none of this would be happening," John pointed out, remembering how Grindelwald's actions had indirectly led him here. "Voldemort was merely a pawn in my plans last June, and now you suggest cooperation. Equivalent exchange is a fundamental principle of alchemy, is it not?" Grindelwald replied calmly, unfazed. "That was the basis of Voldemort's proposition to me." John felt a pang of unease at Grindelwald's words. "Then you should also understand that not everyone is capable of engaging in the alchemist's bargain," John retorted. "It takes courage to negotiate with death itself," Grindelwald said, locking eyes with John. "You're the only one bold enough to attempt it." "Don't pretend to know me," John scoffed. "We've only met twice." Grindelwald's smile turned sinister as he brandished the Elder Wand. John remained focused, ready for any sudden movements. "Let's not escalate this," Grindelwald advised. "Though this place seems deserted, attracting the attention of Aurors would be inconvenient for both of us." Their situation was indeed similar. Neither wanted to reveal their location, and a duel would surely draw unwanted attention. This mutual understanding was why John had refrained from attacking. "We'll meet again, Joel," Grindelwald said, misnaming John before disappearing with a wave of his wand. After ensuring Grindelwald was truly gone, John sheathed his sword. "Joel, what a peculiar name," he mused, casting a spell to enhance his senses. The church was empty. It was just him and the echoes of their confrontation. John pondered the nature of their meeting. Was it mere coincidence? No one knew of his visit here, making the encounter with Grindelwald seem all the more fated. Both were masters of concealment, yet their paths had crossed once again. It's not uncommon to encounter such situations, but John was puzzled about the whereabouts of Grindelwald's followers. Was Grindelwald operating solo this time, or had his followers not yet arrived to establish their presence? Regardless, John considered himself fortunate to have escaped an encounter with Grindelwald unscathed. Without the Elder Wand, John might have considered fighting back, but the wand's formidable power significantly reduced his chances of success. After taking a moment to rest in the church, John retrieved his badge, pondered for a moment, and then sent a message to Blonde. Back at Hogwarts, the absence of John was felt, yet it seemed as if nothing had changed. As the undisputed leader of Slytherin, John's departure meant the house's dominance in the points competition was now under threat. Gryffindor was quickly closing the gap, though Slytherin still maintained a narrow lead. During breakfast in the Great Hall, Harry Potter reflected on recent events. Ron Weasley had missed the apparition exam scheduled for April 21st due to a poisoning incident, but it wasn't considered a significant issue. On the same day as the exam, Hagrid's pet spider, Aragog, passed away. Harry, being underage, did not attend the exam but accepted Hagrid's invitation to Aragog's funeral. Hermione Granger, busy with her apparition exam, declined the invitation, leaving Harry to attend alone. On his way to the funeral, Harry encountered Professor Slughorn. Upon learning of Harry's destination, Slughorn, intrigued by the potential value of acromantula venom, decided to accompany him. Despite Hagrid's lukewarm reception, Slughorn managed to secure some of the valuable venom with Harry's assistance, further strengthening their relationship. The following day, Harry, nursing a hangover from drinking with Hagrid, found solace in his improved rapport with Slughorn and his progress in potion-making, thanks to the Advanced Potion-Making book. Dumbledore's mentorship continued to guide Harry, who felt increasingly fortunate to learn from such a distinguished wizard. One day, on a whim, Harry consumed 3 drops of Felix Felicis, confident that everything would go his way. This belief seemed confirmed when, despite an initial mishap in potions class, he managed to impress both Snape and Slughorn with his resourcefulness and knowledge. Harry's luck extended to a potion experiment with Slughorn, where his suggestion of an unconventional ingredient left Slughorn amazed. Invited to the headmaster's office for a celebratory drink, Harry skillfully flattered Slughorn, who, in his inebriated state, became more susceptible to Harry's inquiries. Harry's intuition suggested that this was the moment to uncover valuable information, leveraging the situation to his advantage. With the elixir of Felicia's effects worn off by the time he reached the gatekeeper's office, Harry found the door slightly open. He knocked, and as it creaked further ajar, he saw Professor Dumbledore staring blankly at a copy of the Daily Prophet. Harry's presence seemed to go unnoticed. "Dumbledore?" Harry whispered, hoping to catch his attention, but received no response. Feeling a mix of impatience and urgency to share his success, Harry stepped inside, calling out again, "Dumbledore?" This time, Dumbledore seemed to snap back to reality, slowly lowering the newspaper. Harry, curious and slightly apprehensive, glanced at the paper and caught sight of a headline about an eruption. A name within the article caught his eye, sending a jolt through him: Johnny Silverhand. Harry, momentarily distracted by the familiar name, quickly refocused on the reason for his visit. "Professor, I've got something important to show you," he said, his voice a mix of excitement and urgency. He reached into his pocket, retrieving the bottle containing Slughorn's memory. The memory, a silvery substance swirling within the glass, seemed almost alive under the dim light of Dumbledore's office. Dumbledore's eyes, previously clouded with thoughts unknown, now sparkled with a keen interest. "Ah, Harry, let's see what you have brought," he said, his voice regaining its usual warmth and authority. As Harry handed over the bottle, he couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. He had managed to retrieve a crucial memory from Slughorn, a task that had seemed nearly impossible. The memory, given willingly by Slughorn in a moment of drunken generosity, was a testament to Harry's determination and quick thinking. Dumbledore carefully took the bottle, his fingers gently cradling it as if it were the most precious object in the world. "This, Harry, could be the key to understanding much that has remained hidden," Dumbledore said, his voice tinged with a gravity that underscored the importance of their discovery. Harry watched as Dumbledore prepared to view the memory, a sense of anticipation building within him. He knew that what they were about to witness could change everything in their fight against dark forces. The familiar name in the newspaper, Johnny Silverhand, momentarily pushed to the back of his mind, now seemed like a distant concern compared to the secrets they were about to uncover. Chapter 487, Slytherin Nears Quidditch Victory. Slytherin House had all but secured the Quidditch championship following their victory over Hufflepuff the previous Saturday. This win, marking a year of undefeated matches, solidified Malfoy's position as the new team captain. At the Slytherin table, Malfoy and Astoria sat together, while Daphne, somewhat mimicking John's earlier behavior, held up the Daily Prophet, possibly to shield herself from view. Malfoy, with his usual arrogance, couldn't help but boast. "This year has been dull. There's been no real competition," he declared, drawing disapproving glances from several Hufflepuff students passing by. The Slytherin team's aggressive tactics were no secret, especially after Goyle's bat accidentally slipped from his grasp during the last match, striking Hufflepuff's main chaser and contributing to their humiliating defeat. Rumors had circulated that Ernie Macmillan, a Hufflepuff, had repeatedly requested a duel with Malfoy to settle scores, a notion that seemed to amuse rather than concern Malfoy. As Hufflepuff students passed by the Slytherin table, they couldn't hide their disdain, though Malfoy paid them little mind. Noticing Daphne engrossed in the newspaper, Malfoy inquired softly, "What's the news?" Daphne, setting the paper down and nudging Crabbe to stop him from causing a scene, replied gravely, "Another wizard has gone missing. There have been werewolf attacks as well." "Attacks?" Malfoy was genuinely surprised. "Who was attacked?" "A boy. He was found with his throat slit," Daphne explained, her tone somber. "The Ministry of Magic is investigating, but there's been a public outcry against the werewolf community, blaming them for bringing danger into our lives." "That's absurd," Malfoy retorted sharply. "The werewolf communities are all registered. It's the rogue werewolves who are the real threat." Astoria, ever the voice of reason, added, "It could be an attempt to stir up conflict. Father mentioned that werewolves have been gaining influence within the ministry." Astoria's father, Mr. Greengrass, was both a respected wizard and a shrewd businessman. Astoria had inherited his caution and insight, understanding the implications better than most. With Voldemort's forces causing chaos, society was on edge, and the werewolf attack provided a convenient scapegoat for their frustrations. It was a harsh reality that the vulnerable often turn their anger towards those even more vulnerable. The news had spread throughout Hogwarts, causing concern among students from various houses, especially those who sympathized with the werewolf community. However, they felt powerless to make a difference. As Daphne folded the newspaper away, an owl swooped down, delivering the latest edition. She scanned the front page, her eyes widening at the headline. Johnny Silverhand was spotted at a magical site just before a volcano erupted. Astoria, noticing her sister's shocked expression, quickly took the newspaper to read for herself. Malfoy, curious about the sudden change in atmosphere, grabbed Goyle's copy of the paper. A smirk crossed his face as he read the headline. "Please, that's just John," he said dismissively. "He'll be fine. I won't fall for the same trick twice." Malfoy was convinced it was another of John's ploys, certain that he wouldn't be fooled again. Daphne, seeking a moment of peace amidst the chaos, found Malfoy's incessant chatter unbearable. Later, Malfoy was summoned to the Star Society, informed by Astoria about a matter concerning his badge. "Draco, what happened to your hair?" Percy inquired upon his arrival, highlighting yet another unexpected turn of events. Upon arriving at the Society of Stars through the fireplace, Malfoy's appearance was a sight to behold. His hair stood on end, resembling steel needles. "This is the latest fashion trend, you imbecile," Malfoy sneered, never missing an opportunity to insult others and stir up trouble. Percy took a deep breath, resolving to ignore Malfoy's antics in the future. Despite the curse that kept Malfoy's hair from falling, he strutted to his seat with an air of defiance. The fireplace flared to life once more, as Fleur stepped through. "Astoria, I knew you'd join the Stars Club," she exclaimed, embracing Astoria and planting a kiss on her fair, pretty face. "Gabriel misses you dearly," she added with a smile. Astoria returned the hug, expressing her own longing for Gabriel. Despite the distance, their sisterly bond remained strong, nurtured by the letters exchanged since the Quidditch World Cup. Malfoy, unable to resist, muttered jealously, "Astoria is my name for her." Fleur rolled her eyes at him and assertively took Astoria's hand, guiding her to sit beside her, as if to declare, "My sister reigns supreme here, you odious boy." Neville entered and took his seat, immediately noticing Malfoy's sour expression. "By the way, Draco, Cedric sent you something," Fleur mentioned casually, tossing an object to Malfoy. Confident in his reflexes, Malfoy caught it, only for it to explode into a cloud of dust. Before he could react, the dust swirled and formed a sandy silhouette of Cedric. This sand version of Cedric charged at Malfoy, berating him, "Draco, you despicable boy." Malfoy was taken by surprise, and amidst the chaos, the Sandman's sandy fists pummeled him, each blow accompanied by a cloud of dust that made Malfoy cough incessantly. Fleur examined the letter that accompanied the Sandman, explaining, "This is cursed sand from an Egyptian pyramid, enchanted to attack as per the sender's wishes and capable of delivering messages." Percy likened it to an Egyptian version of a howler. Malfoy's ordeal with the Sandman lasted 10 minutes, a spectacle that left the others secretly amused by the poetic justice. Astoria eventually intervened, using magic to clean up the mess. "Enough of this," she declared, signaling an end to the commotion. With the situation under control, Percy gathered everyone around a round table. The group, including Cedric and Kim, focused on the matter at hand. Daphne began to inquire about John, but Percy signaled for silence, giving Kim the floor. "The war is imminent," Kim announced gravely, capturing everyone's attention. He explained that they were facing a conflict far greater than any skirmish at the Ministry of Magic, with Voldemort rallying dark forces to his cause. "Moreover, we must protect Hogwarts," he continued, removing his star badge as a symbol of their solemn duty. The gravity of Kim's words hung heavily in the air, underscoring the dire situation they faced. The Society of Stars braced themselves for the challenges ahead, united in their resolve to defend Hogwarts and stand against the darkness that threatened their world. Jin placed the badge on the table and announced, "If Hogwarts can no longer stand firm, we will initiate the Star Club," he explained. "John has configured each badge with specific permissions. Collecting 5 of them will enable the activation of the Star Club." He paused, letting the gravity of his words sink in. However, this should be considered a last resort. The emergence of the Star Society will unleash immense magical power, but it will also bring significant risks. Each member solemnly removed their badges, acknowledging the weight of the decision. Malfoy glanced at his bare attire and thought bitterly, I, Malfoy, have set myself apart from you all. Jin continued, There's one more thing. John has identified the mole among us, he revealed, pausing for a moment to let the news settle. But he urges us not to confront them directly, to avoid alarming them unnecessarily. Malfoy, with a hint of disbelief in his voice, asked, It can't really be Theodore, can it? Jin nodded slowly, confirming the suspicion. A heavy silence enveloped the Slytherins. Pansy, the realization hit them. It was really you. The room was thick with tension as the group processed the betrayal among them. The revelation that one of their own could be the mole was a bitter pill to swallow, especially for Malfoy, who had always prided himself on his loyalty and the unity of Slytherin house. The thought of activating the Star Club, with all its power and inherent dangers, was a daunting prospect. Yet, the knowledge that they had a traitor in their midst made the drastic measure seem all the more necessary. The weight of their decisions, both past and impending, hung heavily in the air, a testament to the complex web of loyalty, power, and betrayal that defined their lives at Hogwarts. Chapter 488, The Wick Family Under Attack on Privet Drive. Watson was sealing a letter with wax, pressing his own copper seal into it to leave an owl imprint on the envelope. My son hasn't written back to me for a long time, he lamented. Mrs. Wick, hearing her husband's complaint, prepared a cup of black tea for him and fed a piece of bacon to Kiki, their large gray owl, who eagerly accepted the treat. You send him letters every week, and John mentioned that his 6th year is very busy, Mrs. Wick reassured Watson, gently massaging his shoulders. Watson, however, remained unsatisfied. But it's been a month without a reply, he grumbled, turning to Kiki. Did you deliver the letter, Kiki? The owl, seemingly indifferent, flew to Watson's plate and snatched some breakfast meat, ignoring the question. Watson, feeling slighted, voiced his frustration to his wife, who smiled sympathetically. The holidays are approaching, and John will be home soon, she comforted him, planting a kiss on his cheek. Besides, isn't your hotel opening in July? It'll be a wonderful moment for the family to share. Watson's mood lifted at the mention of the hotel. Yes, I want all my family members to be there for such a significant event, he said, returning his wife's affection. Despite his occasional irresponsibility, Watson's dedication to his family was undeniable. After a second breakfast prepared by Mrs. Wick, Watson left for work. As he approached his car, he noticed a strangely dressed person standing motionless across the street. Initially dismissing it, the oddity of the figure lingered in his mind, and when he looked again, the person had vanished. A delusion? Watson muttered, checking the time and realizing he was running late. Shrugging off the incident, he drove away from Privet Drive. However, shortly after his departure, the mysterious figure reappeared, this time closer to the Wick's home. As the figure attempted to step onto the lawn, he stopped abruptly, plucked a hair from beneath his hood, and blew it towards the house. Before the hair could make contact, it was vaporized by a spark. Protection magic, the man noted before retreating into the night. That evening, Watson returned home, his mind preoccupied with the day's events. As a key figure in London's underground, he had spent the day navigating the complexities of his world, from dealing with influential figures to managing his upcoming hotel opening. He had even picked up a bouquet of roses for his wife. As he neared his house, his car suddenly jolted. Have I hit someone? Watson's heart raced as he exited the car to investigate. On the ground lay a ragged man, seemingly struck by Watson's vehicle. Relieved to find the man still breathing, Watson helped him up, asking, Are you all right, sir? The man, barely able to open one eye, pointed towards Watson's house, his intentions unclear. Watson, sensing something amiss, supported the man as they approached the house, unaware of the dangers that lurked in the shadows of Privet Drive. Watson stood in shock, unable to process the scene unfolding before him. Don't worry, I'll take you to the hospital, he assured the injured man, noticing the continuous bleeding from the man's leg. With no medical tools in the car, Watson parked and assisted the man to the doorstep of his house. Unbeknownst to Watson, a cunning glint flashed in the man's eyes. Due to the magical protections of the Wick family, the man, having been invited in by Watson, triggered no alarms. Wait for me here, Watson said as he opened the door and rushed inside to fetch a first aid kit. In his absence, the man discreetly pulled a wand from his pocket, stood up, and gazed at the house with a sinister smile. "Second King, do you appreciate the gift I've brought you?" he murmured, igniting the tip of his wand with a red glow. The next moment, a deafening explosion rocked the area. The Dursleys, who were enjoying their dinner, were startled by the blast. Vernon Dursley, with a dazed expression, ran outside to see the house engulfed in flames. "Gee, odd," Petunia screamed, stepping out. "The Wicks are still in there." In a panic, Vernon yelled, "Call the police!" Dudley, driven by concern, attempted to rush towards the burning house but was restrained by Vernon. "Stay back, Dudley," he commanded. Despite Dudley's boxing training, he couldn't break free from Vernon's grasp. Vernon was determined to keep his son safe, especially with the explosion scattering debris dangerously close. Dudley eventually managed to break free, but the intense flames pushed him back. Across the street, the man who had caused the explosion watched with a silent, malevolent laugh, savoring his destructive work. Dudley spotted the man, and recognizing the wand in his hand, exclaimed, "It was him! He set the fire!" The man's gaze shifted immediately towards Dudley. "It's you, with those freakish wands," Vernon realized, recognizing the magical artifact. Realizing he had been discovered, the man prepared to attack, raising his wand. Vernon, in a protective instinct, positioned himself in front of Petunia, urging Dudley, "Run!" Dudley, frozen with fear and memories of past encounters with dark magic, was unable to move. The attacker began to utter a curse, but before he could finish, he was interrupted by a gunshot. Looking down, he noticed a fresh wound on his right hand. Then, a silver light flashed in the night, followed by a precise cut that severed his wrist. Watson, with his clothes singed from the explosion, held a pistol in one hand and a talisman in the other. The source of the silver light was a table knife, expertly thrown by Mrs. Wick, who now stood ready with the knife gleaming in her hand. The man screamed in pain, but Watson, fueled by anger, fired again, hitting the man's thigh and arm, causing multiple wounds. Approaching the assailant, Watson demanded, "Who are you?" The man, driven to madness by pain, laughed maniacally. "Ha ha, we will kill everyone related to the Second King," he proclaimed, looking at Watson with a twisted grin. "He didn't come out. He really is dead." Confused, Watson pressed, "Who is the Second King?" The man's ramblings hinted at a deeper connection, mentioning parents and a master. Watson's suspicion grew, and his demeanor darkened. "Tell me who the Second King is," he demanded, choking the man. As the man struggled for breath, he gasped, "The Second King is John Wick." Watson released his grip, stepping back in disbelief. "Impossible," he muttered, shaking his head in denial. "My son, he can't be." The revelation that John Wick, his own son, could be the so-called Second King left Watson grappling with a reality he refused to accept. "John!" Watson exclaimed, his voice a mixture of disbelief and fury. He raised his pistol, discharging it at the assailant. The sound of the empty chamber echoed crack, and the man lay motionless, lifeless on the ground. Yet Watson's rage did not subside. He surged forward, unleashing a barrage of punches and kicks upon the lifeless body, as if trying to channel his anguish and disbelief through violence. The Dursleys, who had been unfortunate witnesses to this grim spectacle, stood frozen, shock and fear etched on their faces. The reality of their good neighbor Watson, committing such a violent act right before their eyes, was too much to grasp. Mrs. Dursley, seeking some semblance of comfort, wrapped her arms around her husband. Her voice trembled as she attempted to maintain a facade of calm. "John will be fine. He must be at school." "Yes, school," Watson echoed, the mention of this mundane detail jolting him back to reality. Shaking, he retrieved a mobile phone from his coat pocket and dialed a number. After taking a deep breath to steady himself, he glanced at the corpse before speaking into the phone with a newfound calm. "I need to order dinner for one." As the fire at the Wick residence was extinguished, a large gray owl swooped down, landing gracefully beside Watson, who now sat with a grim expression in front of the house. Shortly after, a group arrived, efficiently packaging the body into a car. An elderly man approached Watson, removing his hat in a gesture of respect, and said, "Thank you for using our services for the first time, Mr. Wick." Watson lifted his gaze to meet the old man's, his voice cold and detached. "How many people do we have?" The old man offered a smile, tinged with a hint of anticipation. "I have been awaiting your command, boss." Meanwhile, aboard a plane, departing from the land known colloquially as Bear Country, an eerie silence pervaded the cabin. It was so profound that one could hear a pin drop. Even the captain refrained from indulging in a glass of vodka, wary of disturbing the formidable individuals on board. Chapter 489. Tensions at Hogwarts. 6 months had passed, and the atmosphere at Hogwarts had grown increasingly tense. The wizarding world was under threat, with the 13th assault on a Muggle family marking a new low. The Aurors seemed powerless against the outlaws, who, emboldened by the return of the former Dark Lord, attacked indiscriminately, targeting stores, families, and even high-ranking ministry officials. Amidst this chaos, the Minister for Magic, often referred to derisively as Old Batty, appeared to have lost his touch, his approval ratings plummeting. Yet, with no viable contenders, his position remained secure. Many Hogwarts students, feeling the weight of these dark times, opted for extended leaves of absence, prioritizing their safety over academics. The Patil twins were among those who left, their parents personally coming to fetch them. Seamus Finnegan's mother also arrived, leading to a heated argument between them. "What are they thinking?" Ron, now recovered enough to leave his bed, pondered aloud during a meal. "Dumbledore is here, after all, right, Harry?" Harry, lost in thought, barely registered Ron's words. "Huh? Oh yes, Dumbledore is here," he replied absently. Hermione, ever observant, noticed Harry's distraction. "What's the matter with you, Harry?" "I'm fine," Harry assured her, though his mind was elsewhere. "Has anyone seen Malfoy today?" "Malfoy? Why are you looking for him?" Ron asked, surprised. "Though I did see Goyle heading towards Hagrid's." Hagrid? Harry was puzzled. If Goyle, one of Malfoy's cronies, was visiting Hagrid, it could mean Malfoy was involved. Despite overhearing a suspicious conversation near the second-floor bathroom, Harry decided against investigating further. Changing the subject, Harry asked Ginny, who was on her way to the library, if she had seen Luna. "I'm not sure. She might be at the library or out with Tom," Ginny replied, shrugging. "I'm heading there myself. I'll let you know if I see her." Ginny and Dean had recently ended their relationship, largely because Dean's overprotectiveness grated on Ginny's independence. Though Ginny was open to new romantic pursuits, Harry, preoccupied and hesitant, missed his chance to express his feelings. Both Ginny and Luna were busy preparing for their OWL exams, leaving Harry reluctant to distract them further. Unseen by Harry, Ginny's eyes held a hint of disappointment as he wished her luck with her studies. A sense of unease gnawed at Harry, akin to the intuition that guided him in Quidditch matches. Something was amiss, he felt, but couldn't pinpoint what. Meanwhile, Ron lamented his upcoming apparition test, having been bedridden for nearly 2 months. Harry, too young to take the test himself, could only offer his friend encouragement. As the castle emptied for the Hogsmeade weekend, Harry, feeling restless, decided to visit Hagrid's hut. Approaching, he saw Malfoy leaving, exchanging a few words with Hagrid before departing with Goyle. Curious, Harry hid behind a wall, inadvertently dropping his copy of Advanced Potion Making as he spied on them. Malfoy, noticing Harry's clumsiness, picked up the book. "When will you stop snooping, Potter?" he taunted, flipping through the book with disdain. Upon noticing the handwriting, Malfoy accused Harry of theft. "You dare to steal John's book?" "I didn't," Harry protested. "Don't play dumb," Malfoy sneered, recognizing the handwriting as John's. "And what's this? Half-blood prince? Quite the narcissist, aren't you?" Harry bristled at Malfoy's mockery, but before he could respond, Malfoy's attention shifted back to the book, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. Inside the castle, Harry suddenly had a realization and sneered at Malfoy. "That belongs to Slytherin, you Gryffindor thief." Harry attempted to snatch it back, but Malfoy agilely dodged him. "So, this is how you've become more powerful in potions class. It turns out you've been stealing from Slytherin," Malfoy said with disdain. "I demand you return it." "Give it to me, Malfoy." I growled, frustration evident in his voice. "Why are you doing this?" "Just because this belongs to the head of Slytherin, the king of Slytherin himself. Can't you see? This is Professor Snape's notes," Malfoy pointed out, referring to the handwriting he had seen countless times on Snape's notes for Quidditch venue applications. Harry felt as if he had been struck by lightning upon hearing this. He had long wondered about the identity of the half-blood prince, only to discover it was Snape, the person he loathed the most. Watching Malfoy walk away with the book, Harry was left in a state of shock, too distressed even to consider visiting Hagrid's hut. He sought solitude instead. Shortly after Harry's departure, Hagrid rushed into the Forbidden Forest. Returning to the castle as darkness fell, Harry was met with the sound of hurried footsteps and widespread panic. "What happened?" he asked, grabbing Ron as the students who had been out for exams ran back in terror. Ron, looking terrified, was about to answer when Professor McGonagall, her face pale and expression grave, interrupted loudly. "Everyone, to the auditorium immediately." Harry, informed Professor Slughorn. The mention of Voldemort's name left Harry momentarily stunned, but he quickly sprang into action, rushing to the headmaster's office. When Slughorn arrived at the auditorium, he found the other professors already gathered, a sense of urgency in the air. "What's going on, Minerva?" he asked, noticing Professor McGonagall's tense posture. McGonagall, her voice steady despite the tension, revealed that Hogsmeade had been attacked by Voldemort and his followers, resulting in the deaths of several Aurors and the narrow escape of many students. "Has Hogsmeade fallen?" Slughorn asked, shocked by the news. After receiving confirmation, Slughorn was momentarily lost for words. However, McGonagall's resolve was unshaken. "Voldemort's target is Hogwarts. We must protect the castle," she declared. Slughorn hesitated, concerned for the safety of everyone involved. Yet McGonagall reminded him, "We have Albus." The mention of Dumbledore bolstered Slughorn's spirits, reminding him of their strength. "Strengthen our defenses and protect the students," Slughorn said, quickly setting off to consult with Dumbledore. As the deans of the four houses, including Snape, gathered, the atmosphere in the auditorium grew increasingly tense. McGonagall instructed the students who had returned from their exams to spread the word of the attack. Professor Flitwick began to fortify Hogwarts' defenses, while Harry quickly mobilized the members of Dumbledore's army, knowing their training made them more prepared than most. Soon, Harry was relieved to see Mr. and Mrs. Weasley, along with other familiar faces, arrive in the Great Hall. "Thank God you're all safe," Mrs. Weasley said, embracing Harry and Ron. Mr. Weasley explained that they had been informed by Sirius and had come through a secret passage from the Pig's Head Tavern, which was now destroyed and littered with casualties. As Mrs. Weasley urged Ginny to leave with her, Ginny protested vehemently, "No, I'm staying here." "You're only 15, Mrs. Weasley argued. Ginny, undeterred, retorted, "John's 15-year-old almost killed Voldemort." Her determination to stay and fight was clear, reflecting the courage and resilience that defined the students and faculty of Hogwarts in the face of impending danger. Not everyone possesses the resilience of John. "Arthur, will the Ministry of Magic offer their assistance?" Professor McGonagall, having tasked Mrs. Weasley with the evacuation, inquired of Mr. Weasley. Shaking his head, Mr. Weasley replied, "I'm afraid the situation is quite complicated. We have reasons to believe that the Minister of Magic is being manipulated, and the Ministry itself is deeply divided." "It appears we must rely solely on ourselves," Professor McGonagall concluded. With a sense of anticipation, she raised her wand and exclaimed, "Per totem locomotor." Instantly, the statues and armor lining the corridor sprang to life, detaching from their mounts. "I've been eager to try this for quite some time," Professor McGonagall admitted, a hint of excitement in her voice. "This is a privilege of the headmaster, but Horace is indisposed at the moment." "Hogwarts is facing a dire threat," Professor McGonagall declared. "Guard the boundaries and protect us. Fulfill your duty to the school." With a unified cry, the animated statues and armor charged out of the hall. The students from all four houses were assembled in the Great Hall and began their evacuation under the guidance of each house's prefects. Those who were of age were given the option to stay. Dumbledore, having finally emerged from his small office, couldn't afford to be absent for long. Observing the young faces before him, Dumbledore felt a whirlwind of emotions stirring within. Chapter 490, The Coming of the Attack. "We must be prepared for any resistance," Dumbledore declared, instilling a sense of security among the students. "Voldemort has grown stronger than ever before. There was a time when he feared me, but his presence here signifies that fear no longer holds him back. This battle's outcome is uncertain, but our unity, strength, and love give us hope, Dumbledore continued, his voice steady and reassuring. Suddenly, a chilling, high-pitched voice echoed throughout the auditorium, coming from all directions. I am aware of your preparations to resist, it said, causing Harry's heart to skip a beat. Beside him, Hermione and Ron tensed, recognizing the voice instantly. It's futile, Dumbledore, Voldemort's voice boomed, seemingly from the air itself. Look outside the castle. At his words, the professors exchanged worried glances. Professor McGonagall hurried to the window, and what she saw made her gasp. Outside, a vast darkness loomed, the numbers of Voldemort's forces far surpassing those within Hogwarts. The students screamed in terror upon seeing the overwhelming enemy. Your efforts are in vain. You are no match for me, and I wish not to spill wizard blood needlessly, Voldemort continued. Hand over what belongs to me, and I shall spare the teachers of Hogwarts, whom I respect. You have until midnight, Dumbledore. With that, his voice vanished, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. Dumbledore sighed deeply, then spoke with calm authority. Students, please follow Mr. Filch and evacuate, starting with Slytherin. However, the Slytherin students hesitated. Draco Malfoy stood, his gaze briefly meeting Dumbledore's before he addressed his housemates. If you're below 5th grade, stay out of the way. His words prompted the Slytherin students to rise, though Astoria remained seated. Malfoy then turned to the senior Slytherins. Follow me, he commanded, and they did, leaving some Ravenclaw students to protest their unilateral action. I don't need to heed the commands of a fool, Malfoy retorted with a sneer, leading his group away. Snape observed silently, choosing not to intervene. Filch escorted the remaining students out. Harry watched, puzzled by Malfoy's intentions. Meanwhile, the senior students from the other houses made their choices. Nearly all from Gryffindor stayed, most of Ravenclaw departed, and 2/3 of Hufflepuff left. Those who remained braced themselves for the impending battle. Harry felt frustrated by his inability to act. Then, he noticed Neville slipping out of the Great Hall, presumably heading to the DA. The Weasley twins were also present, distributing items from Weasley's Wizard Wheezes to the students. Approaching George, Harry began to ask a question, but George shook his head before he could finish. Don't. Even Tommy Shelby doesn't know where John is, George said, referring to the rumors of John's demise. Harry felt a weight in his chest, but Fred's supportive pat on the shoulder and words of encouragement reminded him not to lose hope. In the Slytherin common room, with half an hour until midnight, Malfoy led his group inside, his expression turning into a frown. Where's Theodore? He asked, noticing Theodore Knott's absence. Pansy, too, was unaware of when her boyfriend had vanished. He's not here, Malfoy stated, turning to Daphne. It's time to use those items. Daphne nodded and proceeded to John's bedroom. Upon opening the door, a box flew out towards them. Everyone, put these on, Malfoy instructed as he opened the box, revealing various amulets and the Ring of Strike. Each student received a set. Blaise, intrigued by the strike ring, couldn't help but comment on its coolness and wondered where John had acquired such items. Goyle and Crabbe reached for a ring, but Malfoy intervened, kicking the box away from them. You'll wear these instead, he said, pulling out 2 pieces of chainmail from the box and tossing them to his companions. Theodore and another student donned their armor, needing only helmets to complete their transformation into soldiers. Unfortunately, their proficiency in spells was lacking. With a quarter of an hour to spare, Theodore made his way to the room of requirement, unaccompanied. Upon entering, he approached a cabinet and opened it to reveal a vanishing cabinet. Nice job, kid, Bellatrix Lestrange emerged, a small green snake coiled around her neck, her expression growing increasingly sinister. After she stepped out, the cabinet was closed and then reopened, revealing another figure. Theodore's heart was heavy with guilt. He had betrayed Hogwarts. Will my father be all right? He asked Bellatrix, concern etched on his face. I'm sure, Bellatrix replied dismissively, her attention fixed on the vanishing cabinet. Soon, a group of Death Eaters arrived at Hogwarts ahead of schedule, emerging from the room of requirement. Let's make a big fuss, Bellatrix exclaimed with wild laughter. As the group made their way out, Theodore was knocked to the ground, a small green snake slithering out from his robe. An explosion ensued, plunging Hogwarts into chaos. Professor McGonagall was taken aback by the breach in their defenses, rendering their previously deployed protections futile. The faculty and members of the Order of the Phoenix, along with the students, were forced into immediate combat. Dark creatures and wizards launched an assault on the castle from the outside. Professor Sprout led students in deploying mandrakes, whose screams incapacitated the attacking creatures, while the students protected themselves with earmuffs from the retaliatory cries of banshees. Statues and armor joined the fray, animated to defend the castle. The assembled enemy wizards, drawn from across the globe by Voldemort's call, included notorious criminals lured by his infamous past. During a confrontation, Lupin was startled when his Stupefy spell was deflected by an iron armor curse protecting an enemy wizard. He urgently warned the others, but the students' spells were ineffectual against the amulet-protected attackers, leading to numerous injuries among the young defenders. The Weasley twins fought valiantly, utilizing an array of magical gadgets. Sirius Black, in his animagus form of a large black dog, launched attacks from Buckbeak's back. Professors McGonagall and Flitwick faced formidable opponents, including a wizard Voldemort had recruited from Asia. Severus Snape, uncertain of Voldemort's trust, lurked in the shadows, wary of revealing his double-agent status. Horace Slughorn, bolstered by a sip of Felix Felicis, joined the battle, his movements causing enemy spells to miss him in unpredictable ways. The battlefield was fragmented, with Arthur Weasley and Kingsley Shacklebolt clearing enemies near the astronomy tower. Remus Lupin confronted a pack of bloodthirsty werewolves in the corridors, with Nymphadora Tonks providing backup. Despite the bravery of Hogwarts defenders, the enemy's use of amulets widened the gap in combat effectiveness, particularly among the less experienced students. Professor Sprout's team was the first to falter, their projectile attacks countered by the enemy. Instructing her students to retreat, she bravely faced the attackers alone, but was quickly overwhelmed. The defenders were forced back into the castle, where the Hufflepuffs discovered their head of house besieged by enemies. As they prepared to come to his aid, a multitude of lights appeared in the corridor leading to the Slytherin dormitory, signaling the arrival of reinforcements or a new threat. Turning around, Harry saw the Slytherin students lining up in an orderly fashion, fully equipped for battle. Draco Malfoy had temporarily taken command of the Slytherins. Clad in the complete Silver Hand series armor, they managed to push the opposing wizard back out of the foyer. The battle raged on, and in a swift move, Harry incapacitated a wizard with a well-aimed fuchsia spell. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. The tremors grew stronger and more frequent, signaling an approaching threat. Harry looked up in alarm. Charging towards them were dozens of giants, each one more formidable than the last. Leading the pack was a giant who stood out with a golden helmet adorning his head, and in his grasp he wielded various menacing clubs. The sight of the advancing giant sent a wave of panic through the ranks. The students, despite their readiness, had not anticipated an assault of this magnitude. Harry, realizing the gravity of the situation, knew they had to act fast. The giants, with their immense strength and towering presence, posed a significant threat. Their leader, distinguished by the golden helmet, seemed to command respect and fear in equal measure. As the giants drew closer, their thunderous footsteps echoing through the air, Harry and the Slytherin students braced themselves for the impending confrontation. The battle that had been confined to the foyer was about to escalate, and they needed to be prepared for anything. With the giants' arrival, the dynamics of the fight had changed, and it was now a battle for survival against an overwhelming force. Chapter 491, The Arrival of Giants. As the giant swung its club, the stone-pier statues shattered into pieces. Debris flew in all directions, causing a Ravenclaw student to scream as a piece of stone pierced through the student's thigh. Professor Flitwick, with a swift movement of his wand, deflected another flying stone, positioning his diminutive frame protectively in front of the students. "Retreat!" Professor Flitwick commanded, his voice piercing through the chaos. Another wizard joined the fray, launching a series of spells that broke through an iron armor curse, sending opponents flying. However, a green spell narrowly missed his head, complicating the situation. Normally, a single spell would suffice, but the adversary's skill forced him to triple his efforts. Thankfully, the presence of Ministry of Magic aurors, initially stationed for security, alleviated some of the pressure, though their resources were quickly depleting. One auror found himself at a disadvantage as his Ring of Strike ran out of magical power. Bellatrix Lestrange, with a malevolent flourish of her wand, cast a shattering charm that collapsed a wall onto an auror. George, Fred Weasley, witnessing Bellatrix's relentless assault, quickly grabbed a smoke bomb from his pocket. With a shared glance, George understood, and they simultaneously threw smoke bombs, one into the air and another rolling on the ground. Both detonated, engulfing the area in a thick smoke. "Run!" George urged the students, as Fred deployed a portable swamp in the corridor, transforming it into a treacherous marsh that ensnared those unable to see their path. "Ha! Please enjoy the products of Weasley's Wizard Wheezes!" Fred exclaimed, moments before a red spell narrowly missed him, prompting a realization. Staying here might not be the wisest decision. "Agreed, brother," George replied, and the twins made their escape. Outside the castle, Gryffindor students engaged the enemy with a barrage of fireworks. Nymphadora Tonks, staggering into the corridor, yelled, "Wands up!" as she was pursued by a pack of roaring werewolves. Ron Weasley, among the defenders, quickly cast a spell to create barriers, while Dean Thomas, Seamus Finnegan, and others launched spells at the werewolves. One werewolf, displaying surprising agility, dodged the spells and pounced on Dean. No! Dean was thrown to the ground. Ron rushed to his aid, and Tonks managed to repel the werewolf with a spell. However, Dean was gravely injured, with 2 deep wounds on his neck. "Dean!" Seamus cried, attempting to stem the bleeding. Tonks tried to heal the wounds with a spell, but werewolf-inflicted injuries were notoriously difficult to heal. Just as the situation seemed dire, Slytherin students, including Draco Malfoy and Daphne Greengrass, arrived. Malfoy and Daphne incapacitated an attacking werewolf with precise spells, while Blaise Zabini used a silent stun spell to take down another. Malfoy, ignoring the shocked expressions, administered an emerald elixir to Dean's wounds, which miraculously began to heal. "What is that?" Tonks asked, astonished. "Emerald elixir," Malfoy replied with a hint of pride, pocketing the remaining potion. Dean's bleeding ceased, and Malfoy prepared to leave. "Wait, Malfoy," Ron said, his voice mixed with reluctance and gratitude. "Thank you." "Thank me? You hardly deserve it," Malfoy retorted disdainfully. "Always relying on others to save you in a fight. Pathetic." Despite Ron's evident discomfort, Malfoy and his group departed, leaving a complex mix of emotions in their wake. As they advanced toward the battlefield, their mission was clear: to ensure the survival of as many people as possible. Moving through the corridors, they were unexpectedly informed by Myrtle, who floated above them. "There are 3 enemies ahead. Handsome boy." Goyle and Crabbe, poised at the corner, transformed into human bulldozers as the unsuspecting men approached, swiftly knocking them unconscious. "Break their wands," Malfoy commanded with an air of arrogance, ensuring no enemy could retaliate. Splitting up, Malfoy and Daphne encountered Ginny, who was fiercely battling outside the library on the 5th floor. They launched a surprise attack on an enemy wizard, with Daphne preparing to cast a spell known as Fuchsia on another. Suddenly, a deafening roar interrupted them. Daphne's face paled as she yelled, "Get down!" Ginny and Daphne barely ducked in time to see a massive wooden beam hurtling through the air, shattering glass and walls as it crashed into the 5th floor. The source of the destruction was a giant distinguishable by his golden helmet, hurling a statue towards the castle with immense force, creating yet another breach in the wall. This giant, towering and more formidable than the others, was identified by Harry from the ground floor as a tall horse, a term he remembered Hagrid using to describe the leader of the giants. In a bold attempt to distract the giant, a firework was launched, striking the giant's nose and enraging him further. He retaliated by tearing down several pillars and hurling them at the castle with devastating force. Harry, realizing the gravity of the situation, attempted to halt the giant's rampage with a spell, but it proved ineffective against the giant's thick skin. The impact of the giant's assault caused significant damage, with several students caught in the chaos. "Potter, don't just stand there," Professor Slughorn urged, pulling Harry to safety. Despite Harry's insistence on stopping the giants, Slughorn admitted their current inability to do so, expressing concern over Dumbledore's absence. "He's looking for Voldemort," Harry explained, breathless from the urgency of their situation. Dumbledore's strategy was to prevent Voldemort from exploiting the chaos, but Voldemort remained elusive, prompting Harry to seek him out. In his search, Harry encountered Theodore, who, in a rush, collided with him, causing both to tumble down the stairs. A badge fell from Theodore's pocket, sparking Harry's curiosity. Theodore's panicked reaction and hasty departure left Harry puzzled, but he pocketed the badge and continued his search, only to be confronted by a banshee's terrifying scream. The situation within the castle grew increasingly dire. Professor Sprout reported to Professor McGonagall about the banshee's intrusion, while Professor Flitwick warned of the giant's entry into the courtyard and the arrival of blood-sucking demon birds from the astronomy tower. The faculty, overwhelmed by the onslaught, struggled to mount an effective defense. Auror Rhodes, out of breath, drew their attention to the Black Lake, where two more giants emerged, signaling the escalation of the battle. This moment underscored the desperate circumstances at Hogwarts, with faculty and students alike pushed to their limits against an unprecedented threat. The unity and courage displayed in the face of such adversity highlighted the resilience of the Hogwarts community, even as they awaited Dumbledore's crucial intervention against Voldemort. In stark contrast to the others, this one was eerily pale, a corpse. Following the emergence of two colossal Inferi, a seemingly endless stream of them began to crawl out of the dark waters of the Black Lake. The sight was nothing short of terrifying, as the Inferi swarmed towards the castle like a relentless tidal wave. Amidst the chaos, one of the armored figures stood out. Brandishing his sword with a battle cry, he charged towards the Inferi, proclaiming, "Come on, I'm the Dragon Knight." His sword plunged into the body of an Inferi as he bravely confronted the onslaught. Thus, a fierce battle ensued between the living and the dead. The exact number of Inferi hidden within the depths of the Black Lake remained unknown, as they continued to emerge without end. In a desperate attempt to fortify the castle's defenses, Professor McGonagall employed transfiguration magic, skillfully altering the form of two collapsed pillars to create a barrier. "We need Dumbledore," she exclaimed, her voice reaching Harry just as he had managed to vanquish a banshee. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Harry nodded, his face ashen, and sprinted towards the fourth floor. The students, in comparison to the overwhelming horde of Inferi, seemed vastly outnumbered and fragile. The castle was besieged from all directions by the ghastly figures, their numbers too vast to comprehend. How many lives did he take to create such a force? Professor McGonagall pondered aloud, horror lacing her voice. Together with several other professors, she conjured a protective spell, a magical barrier designed to halt the advance of the Inferi. The castle stood as the last bastion of hope against a sea of undead. The professors and students united in their determination to withstand the siege. Chapter 492, Voldemort's Conspiracy. Theodore Nott was sprinting, his heart pounding in his chest, urging him not to stop. His breath caught when he saw a Gryffindor student collapsed in front of him, reaching out as if begging for help. The sight tugged at Theodore's conscience, despite his inner voice reminding him, "He's from Gryffindor, and I despise Gryffindor the most." Trying to suppress the turmoil within, he clenched his wand tighter. In the next moment, a vampire demon bird swooped down, its beak dripping with blood, leaving behind a torn piece of the school robe. Theodore's mind went blank with fear, realizing these creatures were deadly. He turned his back on the desperate gaze of the Gryffindor student and fled. He yearned to escape this nightmarish scene, reminiscent of a purgatory filled with dark creatures and the haunting wails of banshees. Panic overwhelmed him, driving him to the brink of madness. "What's wrong? Not?" A familiar voice halted Theodore in his tracks, making his heart skip a beat. He looked up to see the man who was no longer the headmaster, yet still regarded him with kindness, Dumbledore. Theodore felt an inexplicable urge to approach, despite his desire to flee. Step by step, he moved closer, Dumbledore's patience evident as he dealt with the intruders within the castle. With a flick of his wand, Dumbledore saved the Gryffindor student Theodore had abandoned, and effortlessly dispatched another enemy. Witnessing Dumbledore's formidable prowess, Theodore was filled with terror and awe. "Kill him," whispered a hissing voice in his ears. Entranced, Theodore raised his wand at Dumbledore, his grip tightening. "Dumbledore, be careful!" Harry's shout broke the spell. Racing towards them, Harry saw Theodore's raised wand and acted swiftly. "Expelliarmus!" A red light flashed, disarming Dumbledore. Theodore gasped for air, the spell having drained him of his strength. Harry, furious, drew his wand and aimed it at Theodore, who cried out in panic, "Don't move!" His wand now pointed at Dumbledore, leaving Harry powerless. "I'm sorry, Professor, I had no choice," Theodore stammered, his vision blurred with tears. Dumbledore, unfazed, responded, "There's no need for apologies, Not. This path is not meant for you. You are not a murderer." "I am." Theodore's anguish erupted. "I poisoned the wine. I allowed them entry to Hogwarts. It was all me." "Why would you do such a thing, Theodore?" "I don't believe you intend to kill me. Taking a life is not as trivial as you might think," Dumbledore said, his voice calm and soothing. The mention of the method used to infiltrate Hogwarts piqued Dumbledore's curiosity. "The vanishing cabinet," Theodore confessed, revealing its location in the Room of Requirement and its counterpart in Borgin and Burke's. This revelation seemed to impress Dumbledore, who suggested, "Theodore, perhaps your talents lie in alchemy. Repairing the cabinet is no small feat." Frustrated and cornered, Theodore yelled, his wand still aimed at Harry, who had attempted a stealthy approach but was detected. Theodore was like a powder keg ready to explode, his hands trembling with the weight of his actions and the possibility of killing the greatest wizard of their time. Theodore Nott stood before Dumbledore, his emotions a tumultuous storm. Clutching his right hand with his left, tears streaked his face as he declared, "I'm going to kill you, Dumbledore, so no one can stop the Dark Lord." "Yes, no one can," Dumbledore replied calmly. "Is that why you framed John, the King of Slytherin?" "I didn't want to, but he left me no choice," Theodore said, his voice laced with agony. "He refuses to release my father." "Your father deserved his punishment," Harry interjected, his voice rising. "He nearly killed us at the Ministry." "You don't understand," Theodore countered, his despair palpable. "He's all the family I have left. Without him, what do I have?" "My friend, you still have your comrades in Slytherin," Dumbledore reminded him gently. "Have you forgotten them?" Images of Slytherin friends flashed through Theodore's mind. Though not naturally warm, he truly considered himself a part of Slytherin House. "It's no use, Dumbledore. It's too late," he said, raising his wand with a sense of finality. "He's already here. I can feel it." "No, stop!" Harry exclaimed, raising his wand in response. Theodore's lips quivered, his resolve wavering. In that moment, a small green snake emerged from his sleeve. Dumbledore, with a flick of his wrist, conjured a wand and deflected the snake. As it grew into a massive serpent, lunging to attack, Dumbledore's wand emitted a silver-white light, transforming the snake's aggressive advance into a suspended U-shape in midair. Despite its efforts, the snake's venomous bite was thwarted by Dumbledore, who then crushed a smaller snake that emerged from the venom. "Harry, get out of the way," Dumbledore instructed calmly, even as he dealt with the snake. Harry dove to the ground as classroom furniture flew towards the serpent, pinning it against the wall. "What was that, Dumbledore?" Harry asked, after disarming Theodore. Dumbledore, now holding two wands, one of which Harry had given him, watched as the serpent was immobilized by the furniture. "You might remember it from your dream about Mr. Weasley's attack," he said. "Yes, it feels familiar," Harry admitted. "He's closer to you than you think," Dumbledore said, hinting at the dark secrets and unregistered animagi lurking in their midst. As they spoke, the serpent transformed into a human form, Voldemort himself, clad in black robes and wielding a wand embedded with a philosopher's stone. His cold, high-pitched laughter filled the air. "Dumbledore, you've grown old," Voldemort taunted, as he manipulated the debris around them into sharp wooden projectiles. Dumbledore, undeterred, conjured a barrier of white light to protect them. As Voldemort intensified his attack, Dumbledore skillfully countered, using the environment to their advantage. The duel escalated until Voldemort, realizing he couldn't penetrate Dumbledore's defenses, retreated from the castle with a chilling proclamation. Turning to Harry, Dumbledore asked, "Are you all right?" His concern was evident as he gazed out into the night, pondering the dark forces that lay beyond. The castle was besieged, with thousands of corpses densely packed around it. The brief confrontation was fraught with danger. Harry, sensing the urgency, turned to Dumbledore and said, "We need support." Dumbledore, understanding the gravity of the situation, nodded, grabbed Harry's arm, and they both moved forward with determination. Meanwhile, Theodore, feeling overlooked amidst the chaos, caught sight of the infernal army of corpses outside the castle. Gripped by panic, he clutched his wand tightly and hurried downstairs. There, he was unexpectedly met by Pansy, who threw herself into his arms. "Pansy, why are you here?" Theodore asked, nearly losing his balance from the sudden embrace. "I was worried about you," Pansy replied, gripping Theodore's hand. "Let's go and join the others." "I can't go over there, Pansy," Theodore said, a hint of regret in his voice. "Why? It's safer with everyone else," Pansy responded, puzzled by his reluctance. Before Theodore could explain, he was knocked down, his wand slipping from his grasp and ending up under someone's foot. "Goyle, Crabbe, let him go!" Pansy shouted, trying to fend off the two imposing figures. Malfoy, picking up Theodore's wand, sneered, "Because you betrayed us, didn't you?" Theodore, unable to find the words, simply hung his head in defeat. Pansy was in disbelief, unable to accept that her boyfriend had betrayed her. "Pansy, take him to the dungeon with Goyle and Crabbe," Malfoy commanded, his gaze then shifting to the scene outside. "We're in for a tough fight," he said, his tone betraying a hint of frustration. Outside the castle, Inferi emerged from all directions, including the Black Lake. Despite the combined efforts of the teachers and students, they were unable to halt the advance. The Banshee, whose wails continued to haunt Hogwarts, and a giant rampaged, wielding a massive wooden club. "We're dying!" exclaimed Ron and the others, their faces pale after exhausting all the products from Weasley's Wizard Wheezes. The sight of ghosts climbing up the castle walls was enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. Just then, flames ignited atop the towers of Hogwarts Castle. Dumbledore, with a wave of his wand, transformed the flames into a phoenix. The phoenix, trailing a blaze of red, soared through the air, incinerating the corpses in its path. "It's Dumbledore." The sight of the phoenix gave the defenders of Hogwarts a much-needed boost in morale. However, the threat was far from over. Outside the castle, a group of dark wizards watched intently, their intentions malevolent. Voldemort descended from the sky, landing with a thud in front of the castle. His narrow, scarlet eyes fixed on Hogwarts, a sinister reminder of the battle that lay ahead. Chapter 493, The Encounter of Brothers. Voldemort had amassed an army of the undead, transforming giants into formidable Inferi. These creatures feared only light and fire. Dumbledore's magical flames had momentarily caused the Inferi to retreat, but their sheer numbers posed a significant challenge, even for someone of Dumbledore's caliber. The Dark Army had launched a preemptive strike on Hogsmeade, severing Hogwarts by hope for external assistance and ensuring that no Aurors could come to their aid. To further isolate the school, a group of Voldemort's followers was stationed at Hogwarts' exit, effectively trapping everyone inside. Among these followers was a dark-skinned wizard who found the task of merely guarding the exit rather mundane. These wizards, loyal to Voldemort, were drawn to power and the primal thrill of combat and death. They were a mix of purebloods and notorious criminals, all united under the Dark Banner. Their monotony was broken by the unexpected sound of a car engine, a sound alien to the magical world. A car approached along the muddy road, and a man stepped out. A gray owl landed on the car's roof as the man posed a question that puzzled the assembled wizards. "Excuse me, have you seen my son, Muggle?" The dark-skinned wizard sneered, amused by the man's presence. He drew his wand, contemplating the various ways he could torment this unexpected visitor. Watson, the man from the car, looked up at the castle, its walls illuminated by the ongoing battle and littered with the bodies of the fallen. A heavy sense of dread filled him. Was his son caught in this chaos? As the wizard before him prepared to cast a spell, Watson took a deep breath and issued a command with chilling calmness. "Kill it." The wizard's amusement turned to confusion, cut short by a sudden noise in the night. The other wizards turned, only to find themselves in the sights of firearms. "Fire," Watson ordered dispassionately. The bullets flew, and one wizard hastily conjured an iron armor curse, only for a spear thrown from the shadows to pierce through his defenses and end his life. Watson, picking up a spent bullet, casually toyed with it as he moved forward. Come on, my son is still inside. Meanwhile, atop the castle, Dumbledore was using his magic to combat the Inferi, sending them tumbling down the walls. The immediate threat to Hogwarts seemed to be diminishing, much to Harry's relief. However, Dumbledore's expression suddenly soured, his body faltering. Harry rushed to support him, noticing the pallor of Dumbledore's lips and a small bite mark on his hand. He hid poison in his teeth, Dumbledore explained with a grim smile. In a recent duel, he had been slightly too slow to avoid Voldemort's serpent. I am old, after all, he admitted ruefully. Dumbledore instructed Harry to keep him upright and to conceal his weakened state from their enemies. Voldemort, cautious and still fearing Dumbledore, had hesitated to launch a full assault. Revealing Dumbledore's vulnerability could provoke a merciless attack. Inside the headmaster's office, Harry frantically searched for an antidote among Slughorn's extensive potion collection. Despite trying numerous potions, none seemed capable of counteracting the poison afflicting Dumbledore. Then, a memory sparked in Harry's mind. Yes, that potion, he exclaimed, recalling an emerald green concoction that might hold the key to saving Dumbledore. As Slughorn fled, Harry found himself in a dire situation. Just then, a beautiful melody filled the air, bringing with it a glimmer of hope. Harry's face lit up with realization. He had forgotten about Fawkes, the Phoenix. Fawkes soared into the headmaster's office, perching beside Dumbledore. Dumbledore's right hand was blackened, resembling charred wood, as it was being consumed by a deadly curse and poison. This affliction was beyond even the skills of renowned alchemists, similar to the incurable poison that had afflicted John the previous year. Fawkes moved closer, and a single crystal-clear teardrop fell onto Dumbledore's palm. White smoke rose from the small wounds, and color returned to Dumbledore's face, though it was clear the poison was merely delayed, not cured. This is a very powerful curse and poison. Even the tears of a phoenix cannot fully heal it, Dumbledore remarked, flexing his fingers, which remained slightly stiff. The poison is incurable, and time is of the essence. We could seek Malfoy's help, Harry suddenly suggested. Malfoy might possess a universal potion. It was a plausible idea. Malfoy was known not to mistreat his allies. Without hesitation, Harry set off to act on his plan, leaving Dumbledore's office. As he departed, Snape emerged from the shadows. Voldemort trusts no one now, Dumbledore stated, acknowledging that Voldemort's distrust rendered Snape's role as a double agent meaningless. Even with the Emerald Potion, your poison cannot be cured. Snape, however, proposed a desperate solution. There's only one way, to drink from the Holy Grail. He explained that the curse was so potent it could kill even the most powerful individuals, and the Grail's liquid was the only antidote. Yet, he warned, seeking immortality could corrupt even the purest hearts. Are you testing me, Severus? Dumbledore asked, sensing a change in Snape. Snape remained silent, his loyalty wavering. Perhaps it was because Voldemort had ceased contact after the incident at the Ministry of Magic, or maybe it was the realization that both sides of the war saw him as expendable. Deep down, Snape was troubled by a growing sense of regret and a realization that the magical world's rigid laws were being challenged by a new generation. Meanwhile, Malfoy was engaged in a fierce battle, using his wand to fend off an Inferi and a Banshee. The protective spells on his armor flared as he countered the attacks of a vampire demon bird with a stunning spell. There are too many, he heard Blaise shout, panic evident in his voice. In the chaos, Sirius Black found an opportunity to cast a super bright flash spell, momentarily halting the advance of the undead. Transforming into a black dog, Sirius managed to drag a Banshee away, while Lupin and Tonks worked together to repel the relentless assault of the Inferi. We need a strategy to deal with these infernal corpses, Lupin shouted, pulling Tonks close to dodge an incoming spell. I'm working on it, Moony, Sirius replied, reverting to his human form to cast a fire spell, igniting an Inferi and sending it crashing into its comrades. But in a sudden twist, an unseen force yanked Sirius off his feet, causing him to drop his wand. Sirius rolled to the side, quickly adjusting his body as he used his hands and feet to retreat. Super fluorescent flashes, Lupin called out, casting a ball of light to free Sirius from his ghostly assailant. With the light's aid, Sirius grasped his wand, ready to confront the specter that had ensnared him. As he looked up, a familiar face materialized before him. Sirius froze, disbelief etching his features. The wand in his hand suddenly felt as heavy as lead, impossible to wield. Regulus, he whispered. It was a young face, one that, despite years submerged in water, Sirius could never erase from his memory. His own brother, now a ghost. A mix of grief and anger surged through Sirius as he roared, "Why did you join the Death Eaters? How did it come to this, my brother? Weren't you the family's pride? Didn't you heed their words? Why? Why did you become this kind of ghost, shunned by the sun?" Sirius had once mocked his brother's foolishness in front of his godson, believing himself detached from familial bonds. Yet now, his heart ached. The wand remained in his grip, unyielding. As the sphere of light above began to dim, Sirius made a decision. Better to grant him freedom than to let him languish in the water. "Incendio," he whispered, and flames engulfed Regulus's form, the tension in Sirius's hands finally easing. In that moment, Sirius thought he saw his brother's smile. Regulus, now aflame, brushed against other spectral bodies, passing the fire onto them. A wave of melancholy washed over Sirius as he watched the flames consume Regulus. "Good night, Regulus. May you find peace in your eternal rest," he murmured softly, bidding farewell to the absurdity of this dream, his brother. Tears brimmed in Sirius's eyes as he turned away, rejoining the fray with a heavy heart. Chapter 494, Cedric's Return. The situation was dire. An endless stream of Inferi advanced, their numbers overwhelming. Even the light, which could repel them, was insufficient against the sheer volume of the undead. The only hope was to endure until dawn, but the Inferi threatened to exhaust them long before then. To make matters worse, Voldemort and his followers loomed, watching for any opportunity to strike. Dumbledore's intervention had bolstered their spirits, yet it did little to close the gap in their forces. Even the well-equipped Slytherins were taking hits. Malfoy, dragging Blaise with one hand and wielding his wand with the other, managed to fend off a banshee clinging to his face. Daphne and Ginny joined the fray, providing much-needed support. "The giants are tearing the castle apart," Daphne cried out, observing their thick skin that seemed impervious to harm. Ginny, determined to stand her ground, retorted to Malfoy's command to seek refuge. "I don't want to hide. I'm a Gryffindor. Fear is not in our nature." Malfoy, frustrated, snapped back. "It doesn't matter what house you're from. If anything happens to you, Percy will have my head." "Then let him," Ginny replied defiantly, casting a powerful shattering spell that took down an enemy wizard with a burst of beauty and force. Goyle, witnessing Ginny's resolve, commented, "She does have a point. Whose side are you on?" Malfoy retorted, pushing Goyle forward, "Just clear a path." The duo charged, their presence like bombs detonating among the Inferi, scattering them. Malfoy, Daphne, and Ginny made their escape, employing their magic to hinder the undead. Daphne caused the ground beneath the Inferi to collapse, while Malfoy conjured a black snake that ensnared another's neck. Ginny's spell targeted an Inferi trapped in a pit, eradicating it with a burst of white light. Their escape was nearly thwarted by a giant's club. Malfoy barely managed to invoke an iron armor curse in time, the spell's protection sending him flying rather than crushed. Daphne's agility saved her, and Ginny, summoning her broomstick, took to the air to blind the giant with a spell. Malfoy, disheveled but unbroken, stood, discarding his damaged robe. He silenced a banshee with a well-placed punch and used it to distract the blinded giant, causing chaos among the Inferi. "Where is Percy?" Malfoy shouted, dodging another attack. The situation was desperate, and their options were dwindling. It was then that Harry found Malfoy, urgently inquiring about a universal potion. Malfoy, confused and irritated by the timing, dismissed him. But when Harry explained it was for Dumbledore, Malfoy's attention was caught, despite a banshee's scream interrupting them. Tempers flared, and misunderstandings ensued amidst the chaos, with Malfoy and Harry struggling to communicate over the din of battle. In the heat of the moment, with spells flying and the enemy pressing in, there was no time for explanations. Driven by the need to aid Dumbledore, and Malfoy, caught up in the fight, had to navigate the turmoil as allies despite their differences. The battle raged on, with every spell cast and every move made critical to their survival and the defense of Hogwarts. Malfoy and Harry found themselves increasingly surrounded by an army of Inferi as they ventured deeper into the fray. The situation looked grim. With their backs against each other, the two rivals who usually couldn't stand one another were forced to fend off the relentless attacks together. "Harry!" Hermione's voice was too distant to offer any immediate help. In the midst of chaos, Professor McGonagall transformed into a tabby cat, weaved through the towering inferi with agility, while Professor Flitwick was pursued by a giant. Professors Slughorn and Sprout, along with a group of students, were engaged in a battle against a banshee, pushing it back with their combined efforts. Suddenly, a brilliant white light burst from the castle, momentarily illuminating the dark surroundings like a flare. A figure emerged from Hall, clutching a large bag and hurling it into the air. "Mirage!" a voice called out as a dense mist was conjured from a wand. The bag exploded mid-air, releasing a shower of sand that transformed into human figures upon touching the ground. These sand warriors charged towards the inferi, engaging them in battle. "Draco, this is for bullying my girlfriend." Malfoy had never felt so grateful for being the focus of someone's attention. Cedric had returned, accompanied by Percy and Fleur, and the cursed sand had created faceless warriors that now tangled with the inferi. Astoria leaped over the inferi and embraced Malfoy tightly. "Draco, I thought I'd never see you again," she sobbed into his shoulder. Malfoy, overwhelmed by guilt for causing Astoria such worry, sank into deep self-blame. Unbeknownst to him, Daphne watched her sister's actions with a suspicious eye. "Cedric, how much cursed sand did you bring?" Percy inquired, looking up at the sky with a serious expression. "We need to last until dawn," Cedric replied, showing his empty pockets. "I used it all to bring back the cursed sand." With a wave of his wand, more sandbags flew out, bursting over Hogwarts and creating additional sand warriors to combat the inferi. Despite not wanting to interrupt Malfoy and Astoria's reunion, Harry approached Malfoy for the third time, seeking the Emerald Potion. "What's wrong with you, Potter?" Malfoy asked, clearly annoyed. Harry, with a stern face, replied, "I need the panacea. Dumbledore is injured." "Injured?" Malfoy hesitated, but ultimately handed over half a bottle of the Emerald Potion to Harry. They all knew that Dumbledore's leadership was crucial for enduring the night until reinforcements arrived. Harry quickly made his way to Dumbledore, potion in hand. Meanwhile, Cedric's manipulation of the mist caused the dark creatures to lose their bearings. "Is this the work of the Quunxing Club?" The strength and ingenuity displayed by Cedric and his allies were astonishing, earning praise from Professor Sprout for her Hufflepuff student. A pyramid, an illusion crafted by Cedric's transfiguration skills, rose from the mist, deceiving the giants into attacking it. Their efforts inadvertently cleared a path through the horde of ghostly corpses. Percy joined the fray, and Fleur cast a spell to rescue Charlie from a vampire demon bird. After landing safely, Charlie teased, "Should I start calling you sister-in-law?" Fleur responded with a proud lift of her chin, shooting down another approaching demon bird. Meanwhile, Mr. Weasley found himself in a dire situation at the astronomy tower, where the battle against dark wizards was intensifying. A peculiar gray owl landed on the railing of the tower. As Mr. Weasley, disarmed and in distress, looked up in confusion, the seemingly harmless owl transformed. Scales appeared on its body, and it grew into a 15-foot Peruvian viper-toothed dragon within the confines of the astronomy tower. Opening its massive jaws, the dragon unleashed a fiery breath, adding a new level of chaos to the already tumultuous battle. All the wizards standing were suddenly knocked off their feet. Mr. Weasley looked up, bewildered, as the dragon transformed back into a large-headed gray owl, hiccuping and emitting a small flame. He blinked, and suddenly 13 people appeared, each standing in various poses around the armrest. "Mr. Weasley, I believe we've met," Watson said, having arrived on the back of the fire-breathing dragon, which had been an exhilarating experience. He knew it wasn't just any owl. After all, no ordinary owl could spit fire. Seeing the parents of his son's classmates, he managed a strained smile and asked, "I would greatly appreciate it if you could inform me about what has transpired and how my son is faring." On the other side, among a group of wizards, Voldemort looked toward the defiant castle with a sullen expression, Bellatrix Lestrange standing loyally behind him. "They're too slow, Bella," Voldemort remarked, glancing sideways at the wizard behind him. In a high-pitched voice, he commanded, Let the giants break through the defenses and destroy the castle. At Voldemort's command, the giants roared, paying no heed to the corpses and banshees in their path, and marched directly toward the misty illusion. Voldemort raised his wand, which was inlaid with the Philosopher's Stone, and a bright blue light burst forth, transforming into lightning that surged toward the center of the battlefield. A violent explosion ensued, the blast wave instantly dispersing the concealing mist. Witnessing this terrifying spectacle, the wizards behind him let out excited screams and charged toward the stone bridge. At the entrance stood two figures, one towering and the other more modest in stature. The larger figure was clad in leather armor, wielding a massive wooden club reinforced with iron sheets. The smaller figure was dressed in ornately patterned armor, holding a shield in his left hand and a hammer in his right. A puff of smoke rose from the forbidden forest, and a majestic unicorn appeared, leaping hundreds of meters in a single bound. This was the rescuer Hagrid had summoned. Rubus Hagrid, Hogwarts gamekeeper and professor of conservation of magizoology, stood alongside his brother Grop, ready to defend the bridge. "No one is allowed to pass," Hagrid roared, swinging his sledgehammer as he charged toward the infernal creatures and giants rushing toward them. Chapter 495, Rampage of Hagrid. Hagrid charged like a wild stallion, his armor endowing him with seemingly infinite strength. "For Hogwarts," he bellowed, transforming into a metallic cannonball. With his shield leading the way, he slammed into a giant's leg with a force that echoed a crisp, bone-cracking sound. The giant screamed, losing its balance and beginning to topple, its massive body acting as a blockade against the advancing enemy forces. With a roar, Hagrid pressed his shield against the giant, feeling the weight lighten as the purple magic crystals embedded in his armor blazed with intense light. He pushed the giant forward, gaining momentum before abruptly stopping, sending the giant's body crashing down like a bowling ball hitting pins. Empowered by his armor, Hagrid felt invincible. Looking up, he saw another giant approaching, its wooden club descending with deadly intent. "Hagrid!" Hermione's scream pierced the air. Yet, when the dust settled, Hagrid was found lying on the ground, miraculously unharmed. It was as if the giant's club had the impact of a sponge. Recalling the way John had tested the armor, Hagrid swung his sledgehammer with all his might, striking the giant's toe. As the Inferi swarmed towards him, Hagrid became an unstoppable force, his shield leading a path of destruction. The armor encased him completely, making him an impenetrable iron sphere against which the Inferi found no purchase. Grop, though smaller among the giants, wielded his great club with unmatched strength. His wooden stick, sheathed in iron, made the ground quake with every strike. A spell flew towards Hagrid, momentarily disorienting him. Turning, he saw the wizard who had cast it, dumbfounded that his spell had no effect. With a roar, Hagrid charged, sending the wizard flying with a powerful shield bash. Hagrid and Grop alone halted the advancing army. Then, unicorns emerged from the forbidden forest, their bodies radiating light that tore through the Inferi. Wei, leading the charge, aimed her sharp horn at a vampire bird threatening the Slytherin students. Unicorns. How did they appear? The sight was astonishing. Unicorns typically abstained from conflict, yet here they were, leaving the safety of the forbidden forest. Though only 30 in number, their sacred aura made them invincible against the army of Inferi. Even more surprising was the sight of Luna, Harry's friend, riding atop Wei. Ginny couldn't hide her shock. Harry had been searching for Luna, who had ventured into the forbidden forest to seek the unicorn's aid. Alongside them, the horn-snoring beast, now as large as a big dog, charged into the fray, while Tom, though smaller, incapacitated a wizard with a bite. Luna, with an ethereal voice, cast Locomotor Mortis, causing a wizard to collapse. "You're here," Wei greeted, admiring Luna's earrings. "This is called Airship Lee," Luna replied with a smile, sharing her joy with Wei, who had just kicked a banshee away with her hooves. "Luna, why are you with the unicorns?" Ginny inquired. Luna's response was as dreamy as ever, attributing their meeting to a chance encounter in the forbidden forest. Ginny realized further questioning was futile. With the unicorns' arrival, the tide began to turn. Zou, the enormous cat, leaped into action, scattering dozens of Inferi with ease. Its sheer size and casual movements were enough to dispatch the weaker Inferi. Its large, peony-like tail swept across, ensnaring a wizard, while Tom continued his assault. The battlefield was a scene of chaos and heroism, with Hagrid and his allies standing firm against the dark forces. The unexpected aid of the unicorns, led by Luna and Wei Wei, brought a glimmer of hope, turning the tide in their favor. With increasing ferocity, it seemed no creature could withstand his biting fury. Sirius, transformed into a formidable black dog weaving through the chaos, couldn't help but commend. "Well done, Tom." In response, Tom barked sharply at Sirius, his tone brimming with insolence, as if he were ready to turn Mar, his fangs on Sirius next. "I'll concede that enlisting your help might have been a mistake," Sirius retorted with a wry smile. Upon spotting a unicorn joining the fray, Professor McGonagall urgently cautioned, "Do not harm the unicorn." The presence of the unicorn was a beacon of hope, suggesting they need not fear the specter's assault as long as it remained. The unicorn galloped around the castle, a protective force amidst the turmoil, though other areas continued to suffer under relentless attack. Harry, determined to deliver a crucial potion to Dumbledore, dashed toward the headmaster's office. However, an explosion in the entrance hall caught him off guard, sending him tumbling to the ground. Dazed, he reached out, only to realize the potion, his beacon of hope, had shattered in his grasp. Glass shards pierced his palm, eliciting a sharp pain. As he looked up, a giant clad in a golden helmet loomed over him. This giant, known as Gao Gao Ma, towered above all others, its massive form relentlessly battering the castle's defenses. Fueled by anger, Harry stood and aimed his wand at Gao Gao Ma, though his spells seemed to barely inconvenience the giant. Gao Gao Ma, noticing Harry's defiance, reached out to grab him, but Harry swiftly dodged behind cover. "Harry!" Ron's voice pierced through the chaos. Harry glanced up to see a large wooden club suspended in midair by a levitation charm, and knew immediately what to do. As he ran towards it, the club descended, striking Gao Gao Ma squarely on the head. Ron cheered, their tactic against trolls proving effective once more. "See how skilled I am?" Ron boasted, ready to celebrate their victory. However, their triumph was short-lived as Gao Gao Ma simply shook off the blow, seized the club, and brandished it as a weapon. Stunned, Ron and Harry had no choice but to flee. The giant's long strides posed a significant threat, and had the castle corridors been more accommodating, they would have been overtaken in moments. Their spells ineffective, Harry felt a profound sense of helplessness. Elsewhere, as the fog dissipated and the cursed sand lost its potency under the surge of magical energy, Cedric stood in disbelief. The cursed sand he had painstakingly acquired was neutralized in mere moments. Percy offered a sympathetic pat on the shoulder, suggesting a change in tactics. "This was all I brought," Cedric admitted with a rueful smile. Percy then turned to Fleur, inquiring if she had any alternatives. "Of course," Fleur replied confidently, a plan already in mind. With a flourish of her wand, she sent a green light soaring above Hogwarts. The light burst in the sky, releasing owls that dropped small objects. These objects expanded midair, transforming into life-sized silver warrior chess pieces upon landing with a resounding clang. Fleur teased Cedric, "How's this for a better option than your cursed sand?" "I don't have that kind of budget," Cedric responded with a hoarse laugh. Fleur, assuming the role of a commanding general, waved her wand and ordered, "Charge!" A wave of magical energy emanated from her, propelling the Silver Warriors into battle against the dark forces. Meanwhile, Daphne noticed Malfoy still clinging to her sister and stormed over to intervene. Malfoy, channeling his frustration into the fight, spared a glance at Hagrid, who stood guard at the bridge alone. "That big fellow is quite formidable. Lucky I never crossed him too much," Malfoy mused, perhaps convincing himself more than anyone. Suddenly, a sharp pain in his knee caught his attention. A red hat had made its mark. Malfoy jabbed at his knee with a wooden stick, his movements growing more frantic as the dark creatures multiplied, forcefully kicking the red hat away. A shiver of fear ran down his spine when, looking up, he saw a figure with eagle wings and a jackal's head flying towards him. Just as the creature neared, it was impaled by a powerful flying spear, dying instantly. In the next moment, 11 figures materialized across the battlefield. They wielded no magic, yet their physica, prowess was beyond that of any ordinary human. An owl soared above, its body morphing and sprouting scales until it transformed into a dragon. The fire dragon unleashed its breath upon the battlefield, its flames engulfing everything in sight. Malfoy stood frozen in shock until a hand on his shoulder jolted him back to reality. He whipped his head around, only to find Watson's face looming close to his own. Harry and Ron found themselves backed into a corner. A towering horse charged at them, its hooves thundering on the ground, threatening to crush them into nothingness. Just as they braced themselves for a desperate fight, the door of the adjacent classroom swung open. Filch, fully dressed in his caretaker's attire, stepped out and positioned himself in front of the boys. "Speed equals power," Filch muttered under his breath, steeling himself for what was to come. It was time for the Hogwarts staff to take a stand. This scene unfolds with a blend of the familiar and the fantastical, painting a vivid picture of chaos and unexpected alliances. The transformation of an owl into a dragon and the sudden appearance of formidable figures on the battlefield add layers of mystery and excitement. Filch's unexpected readiness to defend Harry and Ron showcases a depth to his character often overlooked, hinting at the untold stories of the Hogwarts staff. Chapter 496, Filch's Leap of Faith. Get ready, start, and accelerate. Filch's shoes glowed with a mystical purple hue. In that moment, he felt an overwhelming force propelling him forward, a sensation so intense it almost felt like flying. Within his slender frame surged an infinite faith, a testament to over a decade of dedication to Hogwarts. Filch became a blur, his speed rendering him nearly invisible as he leaped towards the towering beast. In that instant, Filch transformed into a beacon of light. His foot, fueled by years of unwavering faith in Hogwarts, became a hammer destined to strike down the enemy. "Ever been kicked by light?" he taunted. The creature, a tall, imposing figure, halted abruptly as a sharp pain exploded in its abdomen. It was as if it had been struck by a high-speed train, its internal organs churning in agony. A mouthful of blood escaped its lips as its body was propelled backward, akin to a ball being forcefully kicked. Filch, growling with determination, became a human bullet, aiming to penetrate the creature's magic-resistant skin, a squib taking on a giant that even wizards struggled against. And then, with a thunderous boom, the creature's massive form was expelled from the castle. It trembled uncontrollably, staggering towards the Black Lake before plummeting downwards with a scream. "Is that Filch?" Ron gaped in disbelief, questioning if the figure before them was indeed their cantankerous caretaker. Filch, upon noticing the two brats, promptly herded them into his office without a word. When he emerged again, he tossed a box of items to Ron. "These were concocted by those two troublemakers during their time here," he grumbled. Throughout the Weasley twins' tenure at Hogwarts, Filch had confiscated countless prank items, storing them in a special cabinet. After handing over the items, Filch vanished from their sight. Throughout the castle, Filch became a relentless force, ejecting any intruders with his newfound might. He also facilitated communication between the houses, his actions inspiring those within Hogwarts. Witnessing Filch's valor, Harry felt a renewed determination to protect Hogwarts, even without the aid of the Emerald Potion. "Uncle and Aunt, I'm scared," Draco Malfoy admitted, his voice trembling. "Don't worry, child. We mean you no harm." Mrs. That Wick reassured him, her voice gentle despite having just dispatched a banshee with a swift twist of its neck. The newcomers, speaking in unfamiliar accents, displayed a ferocity surpassing that of many wizards. They faced dark creatures head-on, decapitating them with their weapons rather than seeking out their vulnerabilities. Malfoy couldn't shake the feeling that he was but a step away from being thrown into the fire himself. Watson, examining his gun, noticed rust forming on its surface, a perplexing sight given its recent use. He realized that some wizards possessing remarkable vitality could withstand multiple gunshots without succumbing to their injuries. Observing the ruthless efficiency of John's parents, Malfoy was struck by the realization that they, despite not being wizards, exhibited a cruelty that rivaled that of their magical counterparts. "Draco, how's my son doing?" Watson inquired, concern lacing his voice upon learning that Malfoy was a friend of his son, John. As they spoke, a dark creature, attempting to ambush them, was torn asunder by a Peruvian fang. Flames engulfed the Inferi, advancing on Watson's position. "John's not here at the moment," Malfoy replied, uncertain of John's whereabouts, but confident in his eventual return. Watson, left with unanswered questions about his son's adventures, including a fire-breathing owl, could only suppress his curiosity. Malfoy, gazing up at the fire dragon soaring above, couldn't help but wonder if there had been some misunderstanding about what constitutes an owl. Meanwhile, Hagrid, besieged by a swarm of red caps, resorted to using one of the creatures as an improvised weapon to fend off the attackers. With a mighty swing, he cleared a path, determined to protect Hogwarts' entrance. Hagrid charged forward like a living battering ram, sending debris flying with each step. The attacks that came his way were mere nuisances to him, though some assailants found themselves worse for wear after attempting to strike him. Across the bridge, several giants made their entrance, with Grop managing to fell one with his club. However, the tide turned as two other giants overpowered Grop, seizing him by his limbs and bringing him to the ground. "Grop!" Hagrid's voice was laced with urgency as he rushed to his half-brother's aid, only to be halted by a massive hand that ensnared him from behind and lifted him off his feet. As Grop seemed on the brink of defeat, a Peruvian viper tooth intervened, its fangs sinking into the tough skin of one of the giants. The giant, in agony, grabbed the dragon by its head and hurled it to the ground with such force that the viper tooth was rendered unconscious. Despite being the smallest of the dragon breeds, the Peruvian viper tooth's resilience was not to be underestimated. Yet, the giant's next blow elicited a pained roar from the dragon. From the chaos, a figure emerged, launching into the air and striking the giant with a seemingly inconsequential punch. The impact, however, resonated like a drum, the giant's head snapping to the side before its massive form crumpled to the ground. Valerie, with his arms robust and ready, landed triumphantly on the giant's stomach. Seryoja Jovanovic, observing his younger brother's reckless bravery, couldn't help but feel a mix of admiration and concern. "Valerie, I asked you to bring weapons," he lamented, though Valerie, adorned with a bear amulet, simply grinned, finding joy in the challenge akin to wrestling a bear. The downed giant soon recovered, but Valerie was relentless, climbing atop the giant and unleashing a flurry of punches. Grop, too, found his footing, his simple mind puzzled by the sight of his kin being bested by a human, yet understanding the need to join the fray against the giants. In a moment of opportunity, the Peruvian viper tooth regained consciousness and unleashed a fiery breath upon the giant, while Hagrid freed himself with a forceful punch. The battle escalated quickly, with the forces of Hogwarts and their allies turning the tide against the dark creatures. The Jovanovic family, alongside Hogwarts' enchanted chessmen and armor, pushed the invaders out of the castle. Voldemort, observing the scene, felt a twinge of frustration at the resistance, yet remained confident in his superiority. "Come with me." Professor Flitwick rallied the professors, their wands weaving together a series of protective spells around Hogwarts. Voldemort, undeterred, sought to shatter their defenses with a powerful curse, amplified by the Philosopher's Stone and a mysterious artifact from the Johnny Silverhand store. A colossal green lightning bolt erupted from his wand, clashing with the magical barrier and shattering it. Dumbledore, witnessing the scene from his office, was struck by a mix of fear and astonishment. "Are you so powerful now?" he murmured. Voldemort's strength had indeed grown, surpassing even his formidable presence at the Ministry of Magic. Dumbledore realized the gravity of the threat, as Voldemort's newfound power hinted at dark deeds done in secret, strengthening him beyond their worst fears. The crystal wand lay on the ground, a symbol of the dire situation they found themselves in. The wizarding world was under siege, and the question of whether they could repel Voldemort's forces weighed heavily on everyone's minds. With the reopening of Hogwarts, wizards and witches under Voldemort's command swarmed towards the castle in a menacing tide. As Hagrid greeted them, he was immediately bombarded with curses, each one striking him with such force that he was sent reeling like a rubber ball. His body would have been riddled with holes if not for the armor he wore, a masterpiece forged by the world's most skilled alchemist, which miraculously preserved his life. Despite his efforts, Hagrid could no longer hold back the onslaught, and the attackers surged past him towards Hogwarts. Leading the charge was Bellatrix Lestrange, her eyes scanning the crowd until they fixed on a target marked by vibrant red hair. The once peaceful halls of Hogwarts were shattered by the invasion, as the group of deranged wizards unleashed their spells on the students without mercy. Professor McGonagall's orders for the students to hide were barely out before the situation spiraled out of control, their defensive strategies crumbling in moments. In the midst of the chaos, Bellatrix found perverse joy in torturing a young girl with the Cruciatus curse. It was then that George and Fred Weasley intervened, their spells flying towards Bellatrix in a bid to distract her. Though she easily deflected their attempts, the look she shot back at them was filled with venomous hatred. Fred, his throat tight with fear but his resolve unwavering, called out, "You should pick on someone your own size." George, ever the one to add fuel to the fire, chimed in, "That way, you might not end up running scared." Enraged, Bellatrix released the girl and turned her full attention towards the Weasley twins. Recognizing the immediate danger, George and Fred didn't hesitate. They turned on their heels and sprinted outside, not daring to look back. The battle for Hogwarts had taken a new turn, with every corridor and room becoming a potential battleground. The courage displayed by students and teachers alike was a testament to the spirit of the school, a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. Chapter 497, Fred's Fate. 2 hours past midnight, the real battle commenced. Wizards clashed with wizards, spells crisscrossed the air, and werewolves prowled with a bloodthirsty gleam in their eyes. Dark creatures swooped down from the sky, and banshees let out their eerie howls at any given moment. A massive hand emerged from the bridge, revealing a towering giant who had not perished but instead climbed back into the fray. Seeing their leader unharmed, the giants let out a thunderous roar. In this chaotic battlefield, it often took the combined efforts of 2 students to take on a single wizard, yet the wizards outnumbered the students by several folds. This was no fair fight. A unicorn was mercilessly hunted down by a wizard, a Zoo-Woo was ensnared by a rope spell, and Hagrid found himself overwhelmed by a dozen giants. In the midst of this turmoil, Harry, Ron, and Hermione found each other and reunited, fighting side by side. Their first adversary was a wizard marked with tattoos across his face, speaking in a language they couldn't understand. Hermione swiftly incapacitated him with a binding spell. Ron, looking at Hermione with admiration, couldn't help but express, "I really love her to death." "Don't be silly," Harry retorted with a nudge, his mind preoccupied with Dumbledore's critical condition due to poisoning. "We should call Slughorn. Isn't he a potions master?" Ron believed that such matters should be left to the professionals. However, Harry was skeptical, given that the poison was concocted by Voldemort himself. Hermione, ever the voice of reason, questioned, "Are we certain that the universal potion can cure Dumbledore? Would Voldemort's poison be that easily countered?" Harry hesitated, realizing the complexity of their situation. If it were simple, even Phoenix Tears would have been effective. Hermione, with a determined tone, assured, "John will find a way. He has to come back." Harry remained silent, pondering the uncertainty of John's return. Yet, Hermione's faith reminded him that although the universal potion might not be a guaranteed solution, there was something else that could potentially save Dumbledore. With a sense of urgency, Harry reached into his pocket, feeling for the badge that still lay there. Meanwhile, Malfoy skillfully dodged an incoming spell, taking cover behind the flower beds in the courtyard. "I think it's time for us," he declared. Percy, with a flick of his wand, sent an opponent tumbling through the air. "Wait a moment," he cautioned. Confused, Cedric, having just rescued his girlfriend, Cho Chang, from an attack, inquired, "Who are we waiting for?" Percy, observing a werewolf being subdued by Daphne, calmly stated, "We wait for Voldemort to make his move. Summoning the order now would only play into his hands." Suddenly, an unfortunate soul plummeted from a castle window, only to be trampled by a stampeding silver horse. Amidst the chaos, Kim Lattisley entered the fray. "Where's Neville?" Malfoy noticed Neville's absence throughout the battle. "He's waiting for the right moment," Percy explained. Daphne, familiar with Malfoy's pride, teased, "If you find yourself overwhelmed, feel free to call on Neville for help." "Me? Overwhelmed?" Malfoy scoffed, standing up to prove his point. However, he was immediately forced to duck as a barrage of curses flew his way. In the heat of battle, Malfoy spotted Mrs. Wick, John's mother, dispatching a wizard with a spectral blade. "Protect her!" he shouted, seeing Daphne rush to her aid. After Mrs. Wick neutralized a wizard, a werewolf lunged at her from behind. "Be careful," Daphne intervened, dropping a golden bell that sent the werewolf tumbling. Straightening her hair and nervously holding her wand, Daphne introduced herself. "Hi, ma'am. My name is Daphne, and I'm John's friend." "John's friend?" Mrs. Wick echoed, examining the girl before her. Daphne felt an intense pressure under Mrs. Wick's gaze, reminiscent of the scrutiny she felt from John himself. Facing Mrs. Wick, who shared a striking resemblance to her son, Daphne's nervousness intensified, more so than facing Voldemort himself. Mrs. Wick, unlike her son, possessed a discerning eye that Daphne found daunting. Daphne couldn't help but feel a sense of pride swell in her heart when she heard the compliment, though she made sure not to let it show too much on her face. Raising her wand, she continued to battle, ensuring Mrs. Wick was well protected throughout the ordeal. However, Mrs. Wick's ferocious combat style left Daphne pondering how to foster a good relationship with her. Meanwhile, Watson, perched atop the Peruvian viper-toothed dragon named Kiki, lamented his previous lackluster owl flying skills. Determined to redeem himself, he decided to showcase his prowess, not as a car enthusiast this time, but as a dragon rider. Gripping Kiki's scales like a steering wheel, Watson maneuvered the dragon to spew fire across the battlefield, providing support to his allies. Upon learning of his son's presence, Watson's worries dissipated, and he fully embraced his adventurous spirit. His wild antics on the back of the fire-breathing dragon left even Professor McGonagall in shock. "Is that John Wick's father?" she wondered aloud. Having previously made an impression by driving a flying car into the humping willow at Hogwarts, Watson's current feat of dragon riding seemed to surpass all expectations, leaving even seasoned wizards in awe. "Merlin's beard!" exclaimed Slughorn, witnessing Watson's fearless engagement with the enemy. Watson deftly controlled the dragon, causing chaos among the giants as if they were mere insects. When one of the giants attempted to retaliate with a wizard chess piece, Watson's quick use of protective spells turned the attack back on the assailant, showcasing his preparedness with a curse-proof amulet fashioned into body armor. After his house was destroyed by a wizard's attack, Watson resourcefully raided his son's basement, equipping himself with various magical artifacts. Among these was a bag enchanted with a traceless stretching spell, from which he retrieved a box connected by magic crystals. Without hesitation, he activated the device and hurled it towards the giants, resulting in a massive explosion that sent them reeling. George and Fred Weasley found themselves in a perilous chase, pursued relentlessly by Bellatrix Lestrange. Her fury was palpable, fueled by a previous encounter that left her seething. As the twins realized they couldn't outrun her, they prepared to confront her, despite knowing their defense against the dark arts skills were no match for one of Voldemort's most formidable followers. The battle was intense, with spells flying in the darkness. The twins, known more for their mischief than their combat prowess, quickly sought an escape. Seizing the moment, Fred produced a smoke bomb from his pocket, and in a coordinated move, they vanished into the smoke, making a beeline for the safety of the castle. Bellatrix, realizing she had been duped once again, unleashed her fury, causing destruction in her wake as she pursued them with relentless determination. The twins hadn't expected to be so closely pursued. They raced towards the castle, managing to reach it just a step ahead of their pursuer. Just as they were about to catch their breath, they looked up to see a banshee tilting her head curiously at them before opening her mouth to unleash a piercing scream. The unexpected sound left them disoriented, their heads spinning. Quickly regaining their composure, they raised their wands in defense. As the banshee opened her mouth to scream again, one of the twins shouted, "Relatio!" Red sparks flew from his wand, striking the banshee and sending her reeling backward. With the threat momentarily neutralized, the twins exchanged a look and smiled, their faces lighting up with the familiar, carefree grins they were known for. Suddenly, George spotted his sister Ginny being chased by another figure. Without hesitation, he sprinted towards her, determined to help. Fred, catching his breath, muttered to himself about the need for better physical conditioning. He was about to join the chase when a chilling voice cast a spell, thunderbolt explosion, blasting curse. Fred barely had time to react before the wall beside him exploded, sending a shockwave that knocked him off his feet. George, hearing the commotion, turned back in horror and saw the aftermath of the explosion. "Fred!" George cried out, his voice filled with fear and concern for his brother. The scene was one of chaos, with the twins now facing not only the supernatural threat of a banshee, but also the immediate danger posed by unknown assailants. Their bond and quick thinking would be crucial in navigating the perils that lay ahead. Chapter 498, An Old Friend in a Flash. Time seemed to slow down for Fred, a phenomenon often reported by those on the brink of death, where senses are heightened to their maximum. Amidst the chaos, he could distinctly hear George's call, the cacophony of the battle raging outside, and his mother's screams piercing through the air. "Sorry, George, I don't think I'll be able to help run the shop anymore," Fred thought, regretting his last interaction with Angelina Johnson, where he had teased her to the point of anger. Facing death, his thoughts were a whirlwind of regrets and unfulfilled dreams. He lamented not having the chance to expand their joke shop, Weasley's Wizarding Wheezes, and the missed opportunity to acquire Zonkos. Despite their reputation as troublemakers, Fred knew George had the maturity and capability to carry on their legacy alone. As he braced for the end, an explosion seemed to expand before his eyes. But in that moment of acceptance, something extraordinary happened. A figure emerged through a turbulent collision of space, surrounded by a shield of purple, black, white, and gold, isolating them from the chaos. The deadly curse aimed at Fred was thwarted by this mysterious force. "John?" Fred gasped in disbelief, his mind racing with questions. John had been missing, and now he appeared, somehow looking younger than before. Before Fred could ponder further, John was consumed by another explosion, which neutralized the curse and sent Fred tumbling away, miraculously without serious injury. As the ringing in his ears subsided, Fred was greeted by a familiar face filled with concern. Fred, are you all right?" George's voice broke through the haze. "Very well. It's like looking in a mirror, except you're missing a piece of your ear," Fred quipped, easing George's worry with their typical twin humor. "I can't believe you survived that explosion," George said, looking towards the crater that had replaced the wall. "I must be blessed by John," Fred remarked, half in jest, half in awe of the miraculous intervention. "To our boss," Fred said with a smile, even in the face of death, paying tribute to the mysterious savior. Meanwhile, Bellatrix, having cast a jinx and retreated, was not moved by compassion nor drained of magical power. Her attention was drawn away by the sight of Draco Malfoy, whom she greeted with a twisted, morbid laugh, mocking his appearance. Draco, unfazed, retorted with disdain, skillfully dodging an incoming curse and countering with his own spells. His quick reflexes and sharp tongue kept him one step ahead, even as he sought to settle scores with Bellatrix, whom he derisively compared to a mummy. This chapter captures the chaos and fleeting moments of bravery, regret, and unexpected reunions amidst the backdrop of a fierce battle, highlighting the complexities of the characters' relationships and their unyielding spirit in the face of adversity. Exceptionally skilled in spellcasting, Cedric effortlessly wielded a variety of spells. One of his spells struck Bellatrix, but she was quick to counter with the Iron Armor curse, shielding herself from harm. Malfoy, witnessing this, scowled and accused, "Shameless thief, pilfering the skills of others." In retaliation, Bellatrix unleashed a spell that enveloped Malfoy in the same protective Iron Armor curse. The two exchanged spells in rapid succession, neither willing to concede. Suddenly, a green curse streaked towards Malfoy, who ingeniously used the flying curse to commandeer a piece of medieval armor as a shield. The armor shattered upon impact, and seizing the moment, Malfoy launched a barrage of spells, propelling the fragmented armor towards Bellatrix. At that moment, Cedric joined the fray. With a display of remarkable agility, he transformed the flying armor debris into a swarm of small snakes that slithered towards Bellatrix. Caught off guard, Bellatrix found herself momentarily overwhelmed by the duo's coordinated attack. The transformed snakes bit at her, but soon fell to the ground, overcome by the potency of her Protagonist curse. "Such a formidable curse," Cedric observed, instantly recognizing the severity of Bellatrix's enchantments. To him, she seemed more akin to a cursed corpse than a living being, bearing curses more potent than any mummy he had encountered in the pyramids. "Let's end this here," Cedric suggested, exchanging a determined look with Malfoy. The two, far surpassing their peers in skill, had both trained extensively and even faced Dumbledore in combat. Together, they forced Bellatrix into a defensive position. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled violently, nearly knocking them off their feet. Bellatrix's expression turned to one of shock, and a sense of foreboding filled the air. Voldemort had arrived. After ensuring Dumbledore had been incapacitated by his poison, Voldemort saw his opportunity to strike. With Hogwarts weakened and Dumbledore out of the picture, he knew the school posed no threat to him. Empowered by the Elder Wand, Voldemort's magic was unparalleled, his power seemingly divine. Professors Slughorn, McGonagall, and Flitwick united in an attempt to thwart Voldemort, but they found themselves outmatched, forced to retreat under his relentless assault. Despite their combined might, they stood no chance against Voldemort's overwhelming power. Voldemort, facing his former teachers, showed no mercy. He coldly addressed Slughorn, expressing his disappointment in the man's resistance and refusal to join him. Despite Slughorn's angry retort, Voldemort remained unfazed, casting the dark mark into the sky as a declaration of Hogwarts' fall. Professor McGonagall, pale with anger, confronted Voldemort, insisting that Dumbledore was still within the castle. Voldemort, convinced of his victory and Dumbledore's imminent demise, mocked their hope for salvation. Reflecting on his past, Voldemort recalled his desire to teach at Hogwarts, a dream thwarted by the then-headmaster's refusal. Despite his subsequent achievements and mastery of magic, Voldemort harbored a deep resentment for the institution that had once rejected him. The headmaster's position, once sought by Dumbledore, had been denied to him. This rejection, especially coming from those he considered family, transformed Voldemort's deep affection for Hogwarts into a curse aimed at anyone he perceived as usurping his rightful place. Now, with the school in ruins, it seemed inconsequential to him. Voldemort, believing in his immortality, was determined to rebuild the school from its ashes, creating a new institution that would be solely his domain. Voldemort's vision for the future was clear. He imagined a school where the curriculum would be tailored to his beliefs, fostering a new generation of wizards loyal only to him. This place, he decided, would not only serve as a bastion of his power, but also as a monument to his legacy, ensuring that his influence would permeate the wizarding world long after his physical form had perished. As he stood amidst the rubble of what was once Hogwarts, Voldemort couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of satisfaction. The destruction around him was not a sign of defeat, but a blank canvas, ready to be transformed according to his will. In his mind's eye, he could already see the grand halls and towering spires of the new school, a place where darkness would thrive and his rule would be unchallenged. However, Voldemort's plans were not without their obstacles. The wizarding community, though fractured, still had those who opposed him fiercely. Dumbledore, despite the earlier rejection, remained a formidable adversary, leading a resistance that sought to thwart Voldemort at every turn. The battle for the future of the wizarding world was far from over, and the ruins of Hogwarts stood as a stark reminder of the high stakes involved. In this chess game of power, Voldemort was determined to emerge victorious, no matter the cost. His ambition was not just to rebuild a school, but to reshape the very fabric of wizarding society in his image. And as the sun set over the devastated grounds of what was once a place of learning and growth, the darkness of the night seemed to echo Voldemort's dark aspirations, casting a shadow over the future that was yet to be written. Chapter 499, The Siege of Hogwarts. In the darkest hour, when hope seemed but a flicker in the vast, oppressive night, the fate of Hogwarts hung in the balance. The legendary Albus Dumbledore, the only wizard feared by the Dark Lord Voldemort, was the beacon of hope for many. Professor McGonagall, along with the students, believed unwaveringly that as long as Dumbledore was there, Hogwarts would stand unbroken. The battle lines were drawn, with Voldemort's forces on one side, eager for conquest, and Hogwarts' defenders on the other, steadfast in their resolve. The air was thick with tension, the silence punctuated by the ominous sounds of dark creatures lurking in the shadows, waiting for their moment to strike. Voldemort's voice, high and shrill, cut through the silence, offering a grim choice to the besieged. "Let me see your sincerity. Begin by handing over your savior," he demanded, his confidence in his victory absolute. He sought to crush the spirits of Hogwarts defenders by demanding Harry Potter, the boy who lived, the one prophesied to have the power to defeat him. Despite the overwhelming odds, the spirit of resistance among the Hogwarts community was palpable. Yet the reality was grim. Voldemort's forces outnumbered them significantly, and the Dark Lord made it clear that resistance would only lead to death, regardless of age or gender. The moment of truth arrived when Harry Potter, surrounded by his friends and fellow students, made the difficult decision to confront Voldemort. Despite Hermione's pleas and Ron's attempts to stop him, Harry knew that this was a battle he must face. "This is my destiny," he declared, breaking free from their grasp. As Harry stepped forward, Professor McGonagall's voice, filled with horror, echoed through the hall. "Don't go there, Harry." But Harry, with a resolve that belied his 16 years, knew that he was the only one who could stand against Voldemort in Dumbledore's absence. Facing Voldemort, Harry was reminded of their previous encounter in the cemetery. The Dark Lord mocked him, questioning his ability to be a true adversary. Yet, as they prepared to duel, Harry's determination was unwavering. The spells were cast, and for a moment, the fate of Hogwarts hung in the balance. Harry, without the aid of his brother's wand core, faced an uphill battle against a master of dark magic. The green light of the Avada Kedavra curse bore down on him, a grim reminder of the power Voldemort wielded. Yet in that moment, Harry Potter stood not just as the boy who lived, but as a symbol of courage and defiance. The green light illuminated his face, casting long shadows as he struggled against the overwhelming force. With every ounce of strength, he held his wand, a beacon of light against the darkness, a testament to the bravery of Gryffindor. The battle for Hogwarts was more than a fight between good and evil. It was a testament to the power of hope, courage, and the indomitable spirit of those who stand against tyranny. "Get on your knees, Harry," Voldemort's voice, filled with cruel mirth, echoed ominously. As the deadly green light of the Avada Kedavra curse neared Harry, a miraculous, inspiring song pierced the tense air. Despite Harry's valiant efforts, the vast chasm in their strengths meant the green light was moments away from consuming him. Suddenly, a phoenix descended from the heavens, its body ablaze, and it courageously swallowed the lethal spell. Flames erupted before Harry, his wand scorched, as he reached out to catch the phoenix reborn from its ashes. Voldemort's laughter, far from being deterred, grew louder. "Dumbledore, you finally show yourself," he sneered, as the venerable headmaster stepped forward from the gates of Hogwarts, meeting the anticipative gazes of all present. For the first time, Voldemort's gaze lingered on Dumbledore's hand, where 3 fingers had turned an ominous black overnight, emanating an aura of decay, death, and malice. Snape, amidst the crowd, cast a worried glance towards Harry, now on the ground. Dumbledore's voice, deep and resonant, broke the silence. "Let's face each other once more, Tom." Voldemort's response was tinged with darkness. "Dumbledore, you're a step away from death. You should have regrets, always." It was unclear whether Voldemort's taunt referred to Dumbledore's past aspirations to be the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor or something more profound. "I've always had regrets, but never about you," Dumbledore retorted calmly, his wand at the ready. The air crackled with tension as the 2 most formidable wizards faced off for the 3rd time. Unlike their last encounter at the Ministry of Magic, Voldemort now seemed to have the upper hand. He launched the first attack, a deadly green curse aimed at Dumbledore, who responded with a silent wave of his wand, sending a shattered statue flying to intercept it. The second curse was blocked by a shield descending from the sky, conjured from Hagrid's protective magic. With the third curse, Dumbledore's wand summoned lightning, dragging 2 thick whips across the ground, disrupting Voldemort's spellcasting rhythm. The duel escalated, each moment laden with lethal intent. Dumbledore, recognizing the heightened threat of Voldemort's current power, unleashed his full might. A spectacular clash of red and green light connected the 2 wizards, gradually morphing into a brilliant blue. The ground beneath them cracked, forming a magical field as the surrounding stones levitated, creating a massive wind circle that ground the earth beneath like a colossal maelstrom, drawing in smoke and debris. Voldemort, not to be outdone, manipulated the stones within the wind circle, hurling them towards Dumbledore. The headmaster, in turn, conjured a protective whirlwind around himself, deflecting the relentless barrage. The battle reached a crescendo as the two magical forces collided, sending shockwaves that knocked everyone off their feet. The connection between Dumbledore and Voldemort shattered. Voldemort, seizing the moment, drew a circle with his wand on the ground, summoning a dense mist from which countless bats emerged, diving towards Dumbledore. With swift movements, Dumbledore's wand spat fire, incinerating the bats, though not without cost. The poison from the attack spread, turning 4 of his fingers black. Undeterred, Dumbledore launched a counterattack, summoning 4 jets of water from the Black Lake that merged into a formidable torrent aimed at Voldemort. With a display of immense power, Voldemort transformed the water into ice, then shattered it into a barrage of arrows hurtling towards Hogwarts. Dumbledore's defenses held, turning the ice arrows into harmless sand. In the next instant, Voldemort took to the sky, unleashing a massive green curse towards Dumbledore. The headmaster countered with his own spell, but the green light bore down with overwhelming force. Dumbledore, in a rare moment, took a step back, signaling the intensity of the battle. The final straw came when Dumbledore's entire right hand turned an ominous black, with sinister veins stretching from his shoulder to his neck. The excruciating pain forced Dumbledore to retreat once more. Voldemort's words echoed in his mind, claiming that no one could withstand such agony. As the magical power within him was relentlessly eroded, Dumbledore mustered his remaining strength to fend off the assault. 2 brilliant beams of light collided in the sky above, causing the glass of Hogwarts to shatter. The ground beneath the school trembled, and a ripple disturbed the surface of the Black Lake, transforming into a colossal wave that crashed against the lakeshore. Dumbledore struggled to persevere, but the poison racked his body with unbearable pain. His complexion paled rapidly, and he coughed up black blood. In the end, Dumbledore was vanquished. Voldemort had triumphed over him, a reality that the faculty and students of Hogwarts found impossible to accept. Their beacon of hope had been extinguished. "You are too kind, Dumbledore," Voldemort remarked as he descended slowly, caressing his wand. "You should never have spared Theodore. Your unwavering kindness, even in the face of betrayal, has always been your downfall. It provided me with the opportunity I needed." Voldemort's laughter filled the air as he reveled in Dumbledore's defeat. Hogwarts' last glimmer of hope had been snuffed out. Whether it was the prophesied savior or the greatest wizard of their time, all had fallen to Voldemort. "Now, emerge from the castle and kneel before me," Voldemort commanded. "You will be pardoned, and so will your parents, children, siblings. Continue to live and join me in constructing a new world. A new Hogwarts, a new wizarding world," he proclaimed. An oppressive silence enveloped Hogwarts, and despair permeated every corner. Hogwarts had succumbed to darkness. Chapter 500, The Call of the Stars, the one who emerges from the dragon's breath. "Sorry, our king doesn't favor the new world you envision," a voice declared. It was Malfoy. Voldemort's gaze shifted toward him. Malfoy stepped forward with a nonchalant air and remarked, somewhat disdainfully, "You're quite the oddity, lacking a nose." "How dare you!" Bellatrix glared at Malfoy, her eyes filled with murderous intent. "I'm going to kill you!" "Silence, you shameless old thief, a dog that's lost its bite, and yet you dare to bark in my presence," Malfoy retorted sharply. "I'm here. Who dares to lay a hand on me?" Even Voldemort, with his gaze now fixed on Malfoy, seemed taken aback by the audacity. "Draco, you are of pure blood. I fail to understand why you oppose me," Voldemort said, attempting to extend an olive branch. "Come, join me, child. You're a half-blood. Did you think changing your name would hide that fact?" Malfoy scoffed, exposing Voldemort's attempt to conceal his heritage. "It's tragic, really, that your mother bore someone who shies away from their own bloodline. Oh, but I forgot, you have no mother. You're an orphan, aren't you?" The air grew heavy with tension. Malfoy's words, filled with contempt, seemed to suffocate the atmosphere. Voldemort, who had initially hoped to sway Malfoy to his side, now harbored a singular desire, to silence him permanently. Avada Kedavra! A green light streaked through the air, a sudden and unexpected attack from Bellatrix aimed at Malfoy. The sky, meanwhile, had begun to sparkle with stars. A radiant light enveloped Hogwarts, causing the deadly green spell to miss its target. Malfoy laughed triumphantly. "My king, do you appreciate this gift?" Malfoy called out, his arms raised high. "The sun may set, the moon may wane, but the stars forever grace the skies. The starlight descends upon this earth, summoned in the name of the stars. The Star Society has arrived." The scenery transformed around them. Vines sprouted from the ruins of Hogwarts, enveloping the castle in lush greenery. 9 doors materialized on the castle walls, while the stars above shone brightly, casting dreamy golden characters and clouds that gathered and dispersed. The stars interlinked, forming a majestic pattern. At the heart of this pattern, a powerful magic converged into a rainbow beam of light, both violent and capable of obliterating everything in its path. This beam descended upon the army of dark creatures, slicing through them like a divine blade. The Black Lake churned as its inhabitants lost consciousness and floated to the surface. Under the aurora, the spectral army crumbled into lifeless husks. A barrier of light encircled Hogwarts, sealing it off from any intrusion. This was the culmination of the Star Society's efforts over the years, a display of power rivaling the Rainbow Bridge encountered by John in Longchang. The Society's members took to the battlefield, wielding beams of light to decimate their foes. "The Second War has begun," Malfoy proclaimed, his arms raised. The students, who had been on the brink of despair, were now invigorated. The absence of the Savior and Dumbledore did not mean defeat. Their king had turned the tide. The golden runes of the Star Society transformed into small figures that scurried throughout Hogwarts, tending to the wounded. Fred watched in amazement as one of these figures healed George's ear, marveling at the sight. Ginny's facial injuries healed, Mr. Weasley's fractures mended, Lupin was cured of petrification, and Tonks felt a comforting warmth. Sirius, previously gravely injured, was now back on his feet, full of life. In that moment, every member of the society was rejuvenated. Daphne tapped her head with her wand, and the exquisite crown of Ravenclaw materialized upon it. This act bestowed upon Daphne a protective aura, reminiscent of Felicia's, safeguarding her from harm. The battle intensified as Hagrid, now empowered by a surge of starlight, unleashed his newfound strength. With a roar that pierced the heavens, his eyes blazed, edged with white light, and electric arcs danced across his pupils. He slammed his fist into the ground, sending a shockwave that repelled the encroaching wizards. "Maintain your positions. We have the upper hand. Do not falter." Voldemort's voice cut through the chaos, rallying his disoriented forces. Despite his composed command, uncertainty clouded his features. The unexpected turn of events had caught him off guard, yet it played into his larger scheme. His ultimate aim was to infiltrate the Society of Stars and seize the Holy Grail. "Giant, obliterate them," Voldemort commanded without hesitation. Gaugalma, adorned with a golden helmet, advanced towards the students with a disdainful sneer. "Little ones." "Little ones," Daphne retorted, waving her wand to open a portal. "Let's see who's the little one now." The portal widened, and from it emerged a fearsome roar that echoed across the battlefield. The injured Cheeky lifted its head, issuing a dragon's call that was answered by hundreds more. The sky above Hogwarts was soon filled with fire dragons, their flames incinerating the dark creatures below. In the face of such might, the giants appeared no more significant than upright apes. A colossal black dragon, 80 feet in length, descended, dwarfing the giants and casting a shadow over Voldemort's forces. The sheer number of dragons overwhelmed the enemy, their fiery breath threatening to turn the ground into a sea of flames. The wizards fought desperately, but for every dragon that fell, more took its place, unleashing their fiery wrath. The method behind this miraculous summoning remained a mystery, but Voldemort had no time to ponder. His focus was solely on the 9 gates, behind which lay his coveted prize. He charged towards them, only to be met by a thicket of vines. Unlike Theodore, Voldemort's power was such that he could tear through them, but without the correct badge, he could not find the right door. Determined, he set his sights on capturing members of the Society of Stars, prompting everyone, including the Order of the Phoenix, to engage in battle across various fronts. Dumbledore, weakened, was supported by 3 young wizards. Harry, seeing Dumbledore's frail state, insisted on getting him treatment, despite Dumbledore's pleas to the contrary. "Harry, where are you going?" Hermione called out as Harry, badge in hand, rushed towards a door. He entered a labyrinthine space, with Voldemort, in shadow form, slipping in before the door closed. Inside the maze, Harry, driven by the urgency to save Dumbledore, pursued a fleeting silver light that darted about like a capricious sprite. Meanwhile, the battle raged on outside. Gauma, a formidable giant, felled a fire dragon with a single punch, defiantly challenging "Who else dares?" As a fearsome warrior who had claimed leadership by defeating his predecessor, Gauma's golden helmet symbolized his strength and offered protection against the dragon's flames. The clash between dragons and giants was fierce, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. The students, momentarily bolstered by the dragon's arrival, found themselves once again under siege by the relentless enemy forces. In the midst of chaos, a group of 12 formidable figures emerged, their timely interventions preventing the death toll at the school from soaring. Among the turmoil, Draco Malfoy found himself once again facing off against Bellatrix Lestrange. As Malfoy's great-aunt, Bellatrix harbored a particular disdain for the young wizard, a sentiment heartily reciprocated by Malfoy. The battle intensified as Fred and George Weasley joined the fray, managing to land several hits on Bellatrix, who seemed unfazed by their efforts. "Where's John when you need him?" Malfoy couldn't help but wonder, longing for the support of his absent friend. Meanwhile, the Hungarian horntail, Amohan, unleashed a fierce torrent of dragon breath towards a towering figure. To everyone's surprise, the figure, engulfed in flames, advanced towards Amohan with determined steps. Just as it seemed the flames would consume him, a bizarre vortex materialized within the inferno. Amohan, sensing a challenge, intensified the flames, only to be met with a contemptuous smile from the figure, who boasted high resistance to fire, thanks in part to his golden helmet. "I thought you'd be smarter than this," the figure taunted, moments before a pair of vertical pupils appeared within the flames, sending him hurtling backward. The flames then began to pulsate in a rhythmic pattern, a signal that was immediately understood by all dragons present. Ceasing their attacks, they lifted their heads in unison to breathe fire into the sky. From this fiery maelstrom, the King of Dragons made his grand entrance. The flames sculpted his majestic form, highlighting the scales that adorned his body, each one alight with the blaze. As he surveyed the scene, his body seemed to expand, the flames emanating from him growing more intense by the second. In a climactic moment, he transformed into a colossal fireball, hurtling towards the giant leader, Gauma. The impact shook the earth, and as the flames receded, the dragon's immense form was revealed. With a chest glowing red with heat, he opened his mouth and unleashed a torrent of fire towards Gauma. "You think fire is useless?" he seemed to say. "Perhaps you've simply never felt a flame hot enough."